Double taps, coffee brews, we're like, here we go. I'm the broken baker, chat's coming in slow. Lawyers pace, jury sits, the room hums alive. Leaning forward, screens glowing, this is where we thrive. Stream from roll real, chat's the heartbeat, loud and clear. Trials come and go, but we stay near. Crimes up, crimes down, you're always here. Drops, lawyer jumps, tension spikes, we freeze frame, the jaw drop, chats and lower yikes. Not mocking the mess, just sharing the rush. Even silence feels like a crush. We read this stream from roll real, chats the heartbeat, loud and clear. Trials come and go, but we stay near. Crimes up, crimes down, you're always here. So grab your mug, don't be late, the baker's life will set it straight.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whoever you are, what if any you might be, and welcome to the closing argument day in the Daisy Link trial, or as it's commonly known, the HVAC insemination trial. They were supposed to come in today and argue jury instructions at 9 o'clock. We haven't had any audio. They are supposed to start 10:30 sharp, but we have seen this judge in action. I don't believe that anything will go to plan today. And yesterday, before they ended, the judge talked to them about closing arguments. She gave them 45 minutes each. I'm happy because 45 minutes is all you need. But the prosecutor started talking about, no, he needed more time and he needed at least an hour. And she said, yeah, you'll get 45 minutes and we'll see how it goes. Because I told the jury that they will be out deliberating at 12:30, 1 o'clock. So I hope she sticks to it. It's not a complicated case. It's pure and simple. You don't need 45 minutes, an hour to run everything down. She picked him up at a drug house. She took him home, got mad at him, threw his stuff out. They got into a fight. She shot him. Any witness that the defense has brought has been absolutely BS, especially her. And I just don't see why they believe that they need so much time to go over all the evidence, because there is not a lot of evidence. She said she did it in an interview, apparently, but we couldn't hear it. She didn't really have any marks. We haven't heard anything about a hospital report from the day where she got whipped so badly that she had skull showing through her skin. So again, I think it's more because prosecutors really like to talk, or lawyers really like to talk, and can't get it done. 45 minutes should be more than enough in this trial. Coke Fairy, stop getting high on your own supply. Thanks to everyone that said I had to go back and watch day 4, part 2, I lost brain cells. That was absolutely the worst I've ever seen in a courtroom. And I watched the Darrell Brooks case. Even though I believe Judge Darrow was weak and should have shut him up way faster than she did, at least she did something. This lady is just screaming at the lawyers, and there's no reason to do it. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. This is the big problem American lawyers have. They think we have to talk to the jury like they're stupid. Let me do my Plevin impression. Dear jury, when we started this, I asked you to find her guilty on second-degree murder. What are the elements you need to find her guilty in second-degree murder? It's must have done it willfully, and it's not an accident. We showed you that she took no steps to save his life. We have the neighbor testifying she didn't arrive at the place where he fell over till 10 minutes later, even though you saw her on video walking out of the house, nonchalantly yelling at him, "Hey, you'll be fine." This is a woman who have lied, showed no remorse, and as you can clearly see, all testimony points to a woman who was mad, who was angry, and who did this on purpose. Thank you. Welcome to my TED Talk, and see you next Monday. I'll do the best I can do. The chat, it's good sometimes. I always say, talk to the dumbest person in the room, and the smartest one will understand you. When you try to be all smart and fancy and use lawyer words, you'll lose more people than you gain. But that's another, it's the same with doctors. A doctor will tell you that blah, 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 blah is wrong with you in Latin. And you're sitting there saying, okay, well, my foot was hurting. Yeah, that's what I said. Well, then just tell me your foot is hurting because you stepped on a piece of Lego. Oh, I can understand that. I don't need to say pressurizing a small area with a rigid edge led to a blah, blah, blah contusion. Oh, subdermal contusion. No, you just got an owie. Good morning, Spice.
I did have to set fire off 9 copies to the jury, at least. This is all going to be a court exhibit, is number 3.
Set fire to what?
I'm sorry, whatever court exhibit needs to be 6. I'm going to give you back these court exhibits. At least I'll give you back these.
Do you mind looking some stuff around?
Yeah, I actually think she believes after her testimony, she was smiling a lot when she got off the stand yesterday. So I think she believes they did a good job. Money G believed her, so it's you get the right jury, get the right day, you can walk away from almost anything. Get the wrong jury on the right day, and your ass will be grass, as the young kids say.
Your Honor, this might be on page 9, just for reading it. After the confinement of the child at sentence, it jumps into deciding whether the defendant is justified. I mean, visually, I would think that there needs to be an extra space. You can kind of look at a continuation of the false statement. I don't want there to be any confusion, but
Defense on page 9, that will request an extra space.
I'm
you know, an extra space or just start that at the next page? Fine.
Yeah, either or.
All right, I'll do an extra space. Is that all?
I'm almost done, but that was it on that page.
They didn't get it right, and she said they had to be there at 9, and they were working yesterday because it takes 20 minutes to print out, and we were supposed to start 1 minute ago with closing arguments. Hey, Expert. Expert was up early this morning and streaming, so I went back to bed and slept. I didn't have to do anything. Well, he was probably up late. It's rosy flowers, or it's flowers. No, that's not roses. That's,
I agree with that. I have no other issues.
I don't know what those are.
All right, defense.
No issues, Judge. I don't have a verdict form.
I emailed it last night.
Oh.
There's one little typo. I'm gonna do it in 2 pages. You can have mine. We'll start following. Okay, I'll make those changes. I'll come back with probably 15 copies. And feel free to call Chambers if you all see anything else you want me to change. I'll be out.
All right.
Again, she was yelling at them yesterday to be there at 9, because at 9:30, because they were gonna do all of this editing, and they stayed for like 30 minutes, I think. No, 45 minutes yesterday. And because it takes 20 minutes to print them, and then it'll take her 20 minutes to read them. And then they had 45 minutes each, and the jury had to be out. She promised them lunch between 12:30 and 1. So she will now be angry that the lawyers are not ready because she didn't set it up in time. But let's do something else instead, because I just saw this when I went live. There has now been set a court date for the Sandra Birdsmore trial. It'll be a federal case, so we can't follow it. Most likely, they don't go to the YouTubes. But a federal judge set an October 2026 trial date in the case of former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell, who is charged with unaliving Sandra Birdsmore, a woman he is accused of sexually abusing, beginning when she was a teenager. The trial is set to begin October 5th, 2026. Thursday marked the first hearing in Farwell's case in several months, and only the second since his indictment last August. Farwell did not appear for the hearing. He has been held without bail by agreement since his indictment. Dennis Casper also ordered federal prosecutors to file notice by January 20 if they intend to pursue the death penalty against Farwell. The crime he is charged with, unaliving a witness or victim, is punishable by death. It carries a minimum sentence of life. Casper essentially overrode both prosecutor and Farwell's defense, who said there was no need to set deadlines at this stage. She also said the October trial date would stand whether or not Farwell is facing the death penalty. Kimberly Stevens, a defense lawyer for Farwell, said she believed October 2026 would not be enough time to prepare for a capital trial. Stevens declined to comment to a Mass Live reporter as she exited this courtroom. Casper also set several other deadlines in the case, including February 2nd for Farwell's defense to file pretrial motions and March 16th for any motion to suppress. If Farwell's defense decides to file a motion to dismiss, they must do so by February 20th. Final witness list must be filed by September 21st, 2026. Birdsmore was found dead in her Canton apartment on February 2021. Locals officials ruled her death as self-deletion, but federal prosecutors have accused Farwell of unaliving her and staging the scene to look like a self-deletion. Birdsmore was pregnant at the time of her death and believed Farwell was the father. Prosecutors have said, but DNA testing revealed he's not the father, the Boston Globe reported. Again, that's a rumor. I don't think that's officially said anywhere. Farwell's first encountered Birdsmore after she joined a program run by the Stoughton Police to teach young people about law enforcement careers, where he was a volunteer and later an instructor. Birdsmore was 12 years old when she signed up in 2010. Prosecutors said he began sexually abusing her at 15, below the age of consent in Massachusetts. Federal prosecutors said Farwell killed Birdsmore to prevent her from divulging information about other federal crimes. Those crimes, according to an affidavit filed in support of detaining Farwell, are coercing the 15-year-old Birdsmore to have sex with him, statutory rape, and fraud. The fraud occurred when Farwell had sex with Birdsmore on duty, then claimed to have been performing police work during those hours, according to the filing. Outside the courthouse, her cousin, Barbara Wright, said she was glad that definitive dates has now been laid out in the case. We're ready to go. It's time to get justice for Sandra and her baby. Wright doesn't believe Farwell should be put to death. He should just stay in jail for the rest of his life. Wright called for the justice to be brought for other accused of having sexual relationship with Birdsmore. Farwell's twin brother William and former Stoughton Police Deputy Chief Robert Devine. William Farwell has been stripped of his certification to work in law enforcement in Massachusetts. Devine is contesting attempts to revoke his certification. They were a big part of this, of her grooming and her exploitation, and it led to what happened to Sarah, Wright said. So, those are the news. They finally had a hearing go through. It has been punted down the road. But finally, they had it, and the judge said, I am not going to wait. We're going to go to court or go to trial, which is good because there's also people on the other side. What is bad is we still don't know if that DNA test is true. It's a rumor that we heard that someone said that DNA said he was not the father. I don't know where the rumor came from. I know it's Boston Globe who mentioned it, but I'm not sure that we ever saw any official paperwork on it. It's also a big problem that no one else has been picked up on these charges. And even more bad shit crazy is Massachusetts still believes she self-deleted. But we know Massachusetts and justice are not two things that goes together, like Ramalama Ding Dong Gadingy Gadingadoo, because the law isn't for you and me. Yes, I got it and a day early because I have my cardio dance class tomorrow. So I thought, let's get those dreads caught a little bit. No, I was down having my massage today, so I rode up after. I felt like I needed it. First, I heard he was not the father. It has been mentioned before. I have talked about it before, but there's no hard evidence. It's the same with the Kelsey Fitzsimmons, that she has lost a baby. There's no record of it. It's one streamer was told by one person. And I'm not saying Melanie is lying about it or whatever. I'm just saying that it's not been confirmed by any filings at the court. And I'm just thinking, if you had lost a baby when you're trying to get out on bond, wouldn't you mention that you had suffered a miscarriage? But again, Melanie apparently had talked to, I believe, a cousin of hers who have divulged that to Melanie. I believe that's the story. Don't put me on that one. Don't pin it on me, because I believe that's the story, but I'm not 100,000% sure that that's how the information got out. But I just never seen, and I have a very big problem with, if I don't see it in writing, I'm not a big fan of telling you, because if we have learned anything, it is that say anything and it's the truth. And if you say, well, I never heard that, then people will attack you because you are lying SOB who just want to hide evidence or something like that. So I'll do the eggshell walk on both Kelsey's potential miscarriage and the DNA. because it's something that popped up in Boston Globe, but I haven't seen it in any filings other than in the newspaper. And newspapers are really good to wrap around fish and not so much else. And yes, I mentioned that yesterday on the show. You should watch it sometimes. Hey, Jamie C. Well, we still don't know. But again, then who is the father? Are they going to go around to every SOB who work for the police department and get their DNA? It was, he actually took too much off the top. So, but I was looking like a beetle. Missy confirmed he's not the father, but that doesn't change the charges. But Missy confirming it, where do Missy know it from? I had Missy on and talked to her back in the day, but has Missy seen the DNA report? Has she? Apparently, there are two sources for the DNA result, but two unnamed sources. I know I'm going to blow your all's mind. When newspapers want to lie, they have unnamed sources. You will see it a lot in politics. Unnamed sources at the governor's office said that this and that. That's a good way to lie. I know it's been reported that two unnamed sources has confirmed it, but unless Missy knows who these two unnamed sources are, I'll wait till I see the DNA report on it. That came from Jess Machado. Courtney Clenny is what came from Jess Machado? The miscarriage. Okay. See, already the story is because I believed it came from Melanie. That's why let's get it in writing so we know what's happening. And Courtney Clenny is a knife throwing expert in Florida, Miami, Florida, where I believe it's Miami. Yeah, where she and her boyfriend was having an argument, and to protect herself, she just did like this with a big kitchen knife, and it pierced him perfectly in the, I believe, lower part of his heart, 6 inches into the chest, and he bled out while I believe she was calling her mom first, and then she called the 911 and screamed. She has been arrested since then for the unaliving of her boyfriend. They are now trying to claim that the state, and the state has been a little wishy-washy in this case, but the state is trying to withhold evidence that would clear her. There are, I would say there's 3 good videos out there where you can say, this doesn't look good for you. Because her story is, he would tape me whenever I lost my mind, but he would egg me on, and then he would tape me. And that's why, and it's a 2-party consent state. Have we heard about that before? So that video shouldn't be allowed in, but you have her beating him in an elevator. You have her on a trip to Aspen screaming how he forces her to do drugs because she had been clean for like 2 days now. And in Las Vegas, where she, I believe, threw a bottle at him. And I have a hard time. They have a knife throwing expert, but she claims she was just like tossing the knife at him to say, get away from me. She's also crazy insane to listen to in some of the recording and tapes that they have, or notes they have about her, where she's talking about he had gone and got something for her, and on his bike ride he had passed one of her friends and he had smiled at her, so she got insanely jealous. But she's an OnlyFans model, so it was gonna be the big December case this year. It's pushed again. It's been pushed 3 times now, I think. Yeah, that would be well. Also, just commit, because everyone was treating her as the town bicycle. So find out you did it to try and cover it up, and then it was your brother's. I hope they test Divine's DNA. I hope they test all of these assholes' DNA. I wish all cops in Massachusetts should be tested, because I just saw another cop. What is that? 2 months ago, 3 months ago, who was incarcerated because he had sex with a 13-year-old boy. And I'm saying none of this starts in a vacuum. All of this starts because you have a really, 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 really bad culture. And I have said this 1,000 times. I can't do it. I don't live there. I don't know where to go. But if someone lived there and someone could get in contact with, especially, and they probably won't talk because police is involved, especially the younger prostitutes, I will bet you dollars to donuts. There are lots of stories of how you get out of the go into the slammer if you just go in the back seat. I will bet you this is not the first victim. And probably a lot of the crusty crews are also being used by these officers, because these police officers seem to be like the ones you see in the 70s on the movies.
He stepped out for 2 seconds ago.
Let's go ahead and get him. Might be in the bathroom, or he might be on.
It's a game of telephone. Yeah, that's the problem. We can't prove any of it till it's filed. Wasn't Subway? Yeah, he was getting something for her. Did you know bees swarm an invading hornet and vibrate in unison until they reach 117 degrees and it cooks the hornet? Yes, I actually did know that. A few will sacrifice themselves, and then the rest will swarm it while it's busy attacking them and just vibrate till it cooks it from the inside. Zach, this is basic biology. Everyone learned that in 5th grade. But thank you for telling us what you learned in school today.
Guys, let's try to figure out, can someone help me with that static noise?
We're trying to figure that out.
Did someone move that podium? There, at least.
What static noise?
It's not this one.
Sounds like they have a Geiger teller in there.
It's our one you stepped out randomly.
Why is a prosecutor doing? Why don't you have anyone working at the courthouse who can fix the microphone?
Alright, Gabriella, if you can't figure it out, I'm gonna get myself another quote. I'm gonna get myself another quote if you can't figure this out in the next 2 minutes. It's fine, started at 9 a.m. this morning, now something's going on. Getting bigger. As across the hall, I can use one of the quotes.
2-2, I don't know why she's off the bench.
Let's check this two across the hall.
So now we're changing court rules because there's a noise. Well, at least I hope that works out. What? No, you just didn't finish 5th grade.
This one.
No, thank you. Grant is the first one to write it.
This is why
It's the one. Yeah, it's the wire on this one.
I really despise this lawyer.
That one? I don't think so. It says the court CV is muted. Not that I'm aware of.
See, grabs it by its leg, so it can't get away, and then they attack in a swarm and starts vibrating.
Sorry about that. Huh? Take your time.
It just stopped.
Well, it's been off for a little bit.
Why?
Yeah, those bees did do wings, because if you want to swarm a murder hornet and cook it to death, your wings better be effing swole.
There's like a little bit of static, but it's not like
How do I know it's not gonna stop?
that. I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll like start up again. It seems to be something with that wire. He was saying that it looks a little bit like exposed.
Okay, we're just gonna go to folks, sorry about that. Two.
That's theirs, right? Yeah. So then they have to bring one. Gotcha. Call Lewis. Where's Lewis, the video and audio guy?
He's there. I'm not having, I don't have to call anybody, they have to call.
Well, she's done testifying, so it's not gonna.
Yes.
She's not gonna say anything. And by the way, for those of you who are members, as always, I am trying to do as little as possible to try and give you any value for your membership. But I did put up a post about something I was thinking that I might do, and but I don't know how to do it, because I was wanting to do like a big deep dig down into a case and do a little bit of video and collecting everything. But right now I am, because I'm such a smart person, I'm doing 7 days a week live streaming, almost, either on my own channel or being a guest on others. So I just don't have the time or the energy to sit down and edit stuff and do all of that stuff. And no, Mo and I still haven't found our Asian intern who can fix all of our problems with editing software. So I was thinking maybe like we could do a once a month members only. I can put the StreamYard link in. People can call in and chit chat if they have something to chit chat about. We can have something we could talk about. I don't know. Again, I just everyone else are always talking about all the stuff they do for their members, and I am the worst channel to ever buy a membership on, because I don't do anything. I hardly even stream anymore. So if you want to have any influence on my decision making, and you don't want to listen to Jamie screaming at you like I do when she influences my decision making, you can go in the poll and do a little clickety clack clack. And please read the text, because some people, I think, misunderstood what I was writing in it. But I think I did it okay, even though it is not my first language. And Marissa yells at me constantly for my spelling mistakes and the wrong use of words. But it's just, I was thinking maybe a Sunday a month we can do a vote on that later, if it should be morning or noon, before you all have to go out and watch footballs. And then we could do something. But that's for you to go and vote on. It's in the community tab on the YouTube page. Thank you, Jude. 2 years. Thank you so much. You are way too kind, but I like it when you lie. Well, you pay me money, so I have to do something, I feel. You left a comment. I'm not going to go to the Texas trial and get a copyright strike on that one. And I'm not going to do an Alaskan mudslide, even if it's members only. They're getting jury instructions saying you can pew legally to prevent a burglary and keep him from getting to the kids in the house. Yeah, but that's standard in Florida. There's no way I'm keeping that out. Well, I am dyslexic. And again, Marissa, please send me a message in Danish giving the same message that I had put in there. Remember, we don't put words the same way you do it. So, and don't do Google or ChatGPT because it's way too easy to tell that that doesn't know English, Danish either. It'll just directly translate it. Only if they believe her. Only if they believe he was trying to rob the house. But again, they're going to see a video of her screaming, him screaming, "I don't want to die," multiple times, and hear her shoot him, walk out in front, and say, "You'll be fine." I never see with you don't have a soul. How should I be able to see you? Da-da-da-da-da. Good morning. What did you say that was funny? It's fine. People are used to being disappointed by you. Only the women folk. Well, it's not an. Is it an Alaskan mudslide, Brandon? You have to, or is it an? Is it an Alaskan pipeline? I might get. Is it the? Is it a Malaysian mudslide? It might be a Malaysian mudslide and an Alaskan pipeline. Yes, this is the problem. This makes kind of sense, but not really. Because you are saying a man by the name of Baker with a terrible grammar, but that's not how you would say it in Danish. You would say, this is a man named Baker with a horrible grammar, because we put the words together a little bit differently. So good effort, but ChatGPT can't save you on this one. The pipeline is for oil. No, not the Brandon pipeline. Pleving is doing a stream on a woman that mysteriously disappeared years ago. She lives close by. Should I feel guilty lurking? Is Pleving alive? I thought I haven't seen him in. Well, I don't follow his channel, but he was going into doing cold cases. So that's interesting. I hope he's doing better. His content will still be shit, but I hope he's doing better. Hvorfor bager og spiser I ikke en Alabama hot pocket til jeres medlemmer? Again, doesn't make sense. Because why don't you bake and eat? No, why do you in a multiple form, not I? And I is multiple in Danish. You would never say I to a person. It'll be, why don't you bake and eat an Alabama hot pocket with your members? Or because how can I bake and eat it and then give it to my members? It doesn't make sense. Again, Danish isn't easy because we have to move the words around, everyone. They are all valid things, but none of these make sense. It's one of the more degenerate ones, I'll say. Yeah, I'm just saying it's easy to yell at other people's grammar and then try and do other people's language after. Hey, Money G. What verdict? No verdict. We are changing courtrooms, so hopefully we'll get a feed from that courtroom as well. But there is a noise because there was an exposed wire. So the judge said, we're going to another courtroom. So we don't know what's going on. No, don't mention my members. My members, they get the raw deal. Do the other? No, there must be only one feed. Where is the other feed? Nope, they haven't done anything. Court is moving to another courtroom. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. There's nothing out there. Nothing out there. Nothing out there. Bum, 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 bum. No. Nothing. Plevin isn't live. Is he? No, Plevin is going live at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock Monday. That's the next time that's the Sandra Crispo. Big announcement of the disappearance of Sandra Crispo. That's for Monday at 8 o'clock your time. Then he had a special emergency show on the Russian apocalypse. That sounds interesting. Alan Jackson feeds the Karen Reed horde red meat on the Billy Bush show. Sounds horrible. I'm not a big fan of I like my steaks bleu, but raw, no, I don't eat stuff like that. Special guest Richard Price discussed the murder of Holly Pillory. Comments on Charlie Kirk's assassination. Couldn't imagine anyone better to talk about it than Plevin. Both sides of Karen Reed presented to new juror and the West Massa bone collector. I bet you both sides wasn't presented if it's on Plevin's channel. And to a new juror, there's no trial. How can you present something to a new juror? I think you be lying, Plevin. Save the bees. Thank you, Jen, for being here for 15 months. And Kathy Michaels, thank you for being here for 5 months. And Marissa is a mean old lady. Oh, look, Brandon is getting up there. Brandon is getting up there. Let's be nice to Brandon today and pin him. Brandon's now he got such a high score. Now I can't find it. There it is. Let's pin that. So Brandon can be nice. Don't look up the Kentucky Klondike bar on Urban Dictionary. I won't. We have had a Klondike bar before, I believe. And Stringer Bill says 5 months feel longer. Well, when you're bored out of your mind is often, it feels like a long time. I don't think so, because he's living with his dad's family. Red meat doesn't specify, Joe, it's cooked. Oh, how? Isn't it normally when you're waving meat in front of a tiger, that's how it goes to? What would you do for Kentucky Klondike bar? I would do nothing, because I'm not. That's something for Brandon, all this degeneracy. Yeah, that's also an Alaskan. Can't remember, it's a Klondike bar. Yeah, we have had that before. But that's stuff that Emspire and Brandon is into. I'm not into that. I don't have an industrial freezer for stuff like that. Yeah, I answered and said, whoopsie. She didn't call authorities because she thought victim would be deported, which is bullshit, because he was from Puerto Rico. He couldn't be deported. Marissa is bringing the Miami Heat today. But you know she's kind of freaky. No, anyone who suggests anyone go Google something on this channel, unless it's me, never, ever, ever, ever do it. If you do it, make sure kids have left the room and that your eyes are bleachable. Maybe I'm tired, but why would you need an industrial freezer for ice cream? Isn't it sweet when the kid comes in and misses out parts of what we talked about? I actually have one of those small ones because I don't need to have a big one, because I live alone. I walk alone, but I am actually, if I get that house, I need a bigger one, because it's too small. But I used to just have that little crappy one on top of the fridge back when I was living in an apartment, because that came with the fridge. But now I have, I don't know, it's like this big, and it's just not enough, because you want to go and buy stuff when there's some good offers, and I don't have enough room in my freezer. I absolutely don't like cars. I am one of the few people in the world who don't give two craps about a car. A car is a object that goes from A to B. It's, again, my favorite car is a Fiat Multipla. So I don't care about the cars at all. I didn't say anything. I said it was cute when she didn't know what we were talking about, and now she's gonna Google it. It's yeah. Have you met Brandon? I have a farmhouse in New Jersey and a one-bedroom apartment in Florida that I share with my mom. What? If you moved your apartment to a little further north, you can share it with me. I'll go there a couple of times a year. I have a regular fridge, a chest freezer, and a mini fridge. Why do you need two fridges? I could understand two freezers if you have a small one of those freezers. Yeah, I really don't care about. Of course, I can see a car when I'm down where my sister lives, and you walk out, and it's Bentley and Ferraris and Porsches that just go by. You're thinking, "Oh my God, I wish I had the money for one of those." But in Denmark, they would cost more than a house. Most of these cars. I drive around in an old Opel, and it's a great car. It has self-deletion doors, so it's easy to get in and out of if you have kids. I like it, and it's a van size, as they call it here, not an SUV, but so there's plenty of room if I go out shopping or go to Germany and need to stock up on stuff. I really don't care about cars. I never ever found it interesting how big an engine was because I can only go the speed limit anyway. My mom and dad had two freezers when I grew up, but fridges, no. Yeah. No, but Brandon is the mind behind. He thinks up the same stuff as they did. One for food and one for drinks. It's just a waste of energy. Just keep one. I just got a 22 Equinox, but my favorite cars are those Mini Coopers and the Ford Thunderbird. I like the Mini Cooper original one. My buddy had one of those. Shitty car, stopped all the time, but it was fun to drive because the wheels are at the corner, so it's kind of like riding a go-kart. The new electric Cooper E, I think it is, that looks cool, but they're so low, and I like to go into a car instead of going down to a car. Two fridges is normal. In Denmark, we'll call it an American fridge if you have the side by side where you have the freezer and the fridge, or just two fridges side by side. We'll call that an American, especially if it has the water ice cube thing in the door. That's an American fridge. That's how we call it in Denmark. I grew up in a house with 4 kids and at least 1 or 2 extra kids running around, and we only had one fridge all the time. A beer fridge in the garage, an extra fridge in the basement that came with the house and hasn't broken, so it stores whatever extra. That's a lot. It's a lot of energy. Well, I don't mind cold drinks, but still, are you drinking a fridge full of drinks every day? But it must mean you have cheap electricity, because that's the biggest problem for me, having a big fancy American, well, side by side. I really like those side by sides, but they are so extremely expensive, and power is just so expensive in Denmark. Australia is weird. Look up a jar of pasta sauce in 2008. No, no, thank you. No, we don't have Costco. Sweden do have Costco, so I could go to Costco in Sweden, and apparently then I can go to Costco in America if I have a Costco. I think you have to have a membership or something to go into Costco. But we do have bulk sellers. Or normally you'll just go and see, okay, this week you can get your frozen vegetables. Okay, we'll go and stock up on that and fill the freezer. But if I'm moving to that place where I want to move, I will have to do that because it's a little rural, so you don't have the shop. So yeah, I would need more freezer space to have that. My sister has a fridge with freezer in the house. Then there's one in the garage and one standing freezer in the. Then a smaller fridge in the shed for adult drinks. Well, I'm single. I don't need that much space. I just need enough space that I can store frozen vegetables, my pre-made meals for about 10 days, because I'll do that when we go into a new case. I'll stock up the freezer, and so I just have something to heat.
not gonna need it for a couple hours, but
What?
and then you'll excuse them. We'll just read out those 3 names.
What? Who? What's happening now? Couple of hours for what? Yeah, you have a lot of big stuff we don't have, but we pay so much extra on our to save the environment because we are very conscious about saving the environment. So I think on my electricity bill, it's something like 15% of my bill is the electricity. The rest is just all the green taxes and all the transport fee. That's why, again, if it'll be possible for me to buy that cheap ass house I'd looked at, I would have enough money that I could put some solar on it, and then I could at least save some money for the electricity. How dare you? Well, we have been saving the environment since the 70s because all of those things you now have in your house, the light bulbs, the pressure thingies for the shower so you don't get too much water out of them, we have had since the 70s, and it didn't help. So I'm pretty sure no matter if it's Biden who taxes the shit out of people to save the environment, or it's Trump who says, nah, that's a bad idea, the environment won't change. I would actually bet you it won't change anything. So it's not just the current government. The last one, they paid us to put up wind farms outside of New Hampshire because we have a company that just went bankrupt when they removed the green subsidies. In Denmark, we're talking about, hey, should we not try and get nuclear because the sun and the wind isn't there all the time? And we can see in our small country with 6 million people, we're talking about having blackouts now. Never had that in my entire life without something massively going catastrophically wrong. But because green power can't support our community, they're talking about now we'll have to see spikes. So I don't think it's the government, no matter if it's red, blue, yellow, and green. I think it's the technology is just not good enough. So it's a waste of money so far.
Hi, folks. Good morning.
Yeah, how is it? China's
If you call
opening
in during the
5
convo, we
coal-powered
seated,
a day.
Lawyers are present as well as asleep. I'm sorry for the delay. So the delay was due in part to audio issues in my courtroom, which happened not even half an hour ago. We had to move. I thank my colleague for letting me use her courtroom. In a minute, Lisette is going to hand you jury instructions because both sides have rested. You're going to read along with me. I have to read it into the record. It's easier, I think, if you absorb the information as you follow along with me.
No, I don't believe your dangly bits has anything to do with your skills to be any job in the world. I just think there's a lot of crappy lawyers and crappy judges, and this has just been 3 cases in a row we've seen with female judges who have been horrible. There's also a ton of bad male judges. Even though I am the biggest misogynist on YouTube, I still believe that women can be just as horrible and good judges as men. And as I said yesterday, my favorite judge in our local court is, well, second favorite is a female because she got balls.
A copy of the jury instructions will be sent back to you as you deliberate, so you don't have to memorize anything in these instructions, but please pay close attention to them. And I'll tell you which page number I'm on as we read along together. There's 2 instructions that I need to read to you as part of the evidence. Number 1 has to do with parental rights. It's also part of its instructions. The court has taken judicial notice that there are no records in Miami-Dade County terminating the parental rights of Pedro Jimenez. Also an instruction on the use of transcripts. Someone had asked about transcripts. There is a copy of transcripts that will be available to you, but it is an aid to what you view in the evidence being the statement of Ms. Link that was already introduced into evidence. So You heard a recording and you will be furnished transcripts of the recording. The recording is the evidence. The transcripts are provided to you only as a guide to help you follow. And I'm sorry, as you listen to the recording, the transcripts are not evidence of what was actually said or who said it. If you notice any difference between that and what you hear on the recording and what you read in the transcripts, you must rely on what you hear and not on what you read. All right, so I'm going to read a paragraph and then we're going to start with the jury instructions, and then the lawyers will have an opportunity to make their closing arguments. Both the state and the defense have now rested. The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence or your instruction on the law. However, do listen closely to their arguments. They are intended to aid you in understanding the case. Each side will have equal time, but the state is entitled to divide this time between an opening and a rebuttal argument after the defendant has spoken. All right, I'm on cover page of the instructions. Members of the jury, I thank you for your attention during this trial. You have now heard all the evidence in the case. In a few minutes, the lawyers will present their final arguments. First, it is my duty to instruct you on the rules of law that you must follow and apply to arrive at a proper verdict. I'm on page 2. Daisy Link, the defendant in this case, has been accused of the crime of second-degree murder with a firearm. Introduction to homicide on page 3. The defendant is accused of the crime charged in count 1 of the information of 1 count of second-degree murder and manslaughter, all of which are unlawful. However, a killing that was excusable homicide or that was committed by a justifiable use of deadly force is lawful. If you find Pedro Jimenez was killed by the defendant, you will then consider the circumstances surrounding the killing in deciding if the killing was second-degree murder or manslaughter, or whether the killing was excusable homicide or resulted from the justifiable use of deadly force. Justifiable homicide. The use of deadly force to kill a human being is justifiable homicide and therefore lawful if necessarily done while resisting an attempt to murder or commit a felony upon the defendant, or to commit a felony in or upon any dwelling house in which the defendant was at the time of the killing. Deadly force means force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. Great bodily harm means harm that is more than slight, trivial, minor, or moderate. Excusable homicide. The killing of a human being is excusable homicide and therefore lawful under any one of the following 3 circumstances. 1, when the killing is committed by accident and misfortune in doing any lawful act by lawful means with usual ordinary caution and without any unlawful intent. Or 2, when the killing occurs by accident and misfortune in the heat of passion upon any sudden and sufficient provocation. Or 3, when the killing is committed by accident and misfortune resulting from a sudden combat, if a dangerous weapon is not used and the killing is not done in a cruel or unusual manner. A dangerous weapon is any object that will likely cause death or great bodily harm if used in the ordinary and usual manner contemplated by its design and construction. I now instruct you on the circumstances that must be proved before the defendant may be found guilty of second-degree murder or any lesser included crime. Second-degree murder. To prove the crime of second-degree murder, the state must prove the following 3 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Number 1, Pedro Jimenez is dead. 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. 3, there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act eminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. An act includes a series of related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design or purpose. An act is eminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind if it is an act or series of acts that, 1, a person of ordinary judgment would know is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily injury to another, and 2, is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent, and 3, is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. In order to convict of second-degree murder, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had an intent to cause death. Lesser included crimes. In considering the evidence, you should consider the possibility that although the evidence may not convince you that the defendant committed the main crime of which she is accused, there may be evidence that she committed other acts that would constitute a lesser included crime. Therefore, if you decide that the main accusation has not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you will next need to decide if the defendant is guilty of any lesser included crime. The lesser crime indicated in the definition of second-degree murder with a firearm is manslaughter. Page 6, the definition of manslaughter. To prove the crime of manslaughter, the state must prove the following 2 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Number 1, Pedro Jimenez is dead. 2, the defendant intentionally committed an act or series of acts that caused the death of Pedro Jimenez, or the death of Pedro Jimenez was caused by the culpable negligence of the defendant. Every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention to harm, that violation is negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of manslaughter by committing a merely negligent act, or if the killing was either justifiable or excusable homicide, as I have previously instructed you. In order to convict of manslaughter by act, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had an intent to cause death, only an intent to commit an act that was not merely negligent, justified or excusable, which caused the death. I will now define for you culpable negligence. As I have said, every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention to do harm, that violation is negligence. But culpable negligence is more than a failure to use ordinary care towards others. For negligence to be culpable, it must be gross and flagrant. Culpable negligence is a course of conduct showing reckless disregard of human life or grossly careless disregard for the safety and welfare of the public. The negligent act or omission must have been committed with an utter disregard for the safety of others. Culpable negligence is consciously doing an act or following a course of conduct that the defendant knew or reasonably should have known was likely to cause death or great bodily injury. 7, page 7, aggravation of second-degree murder or manslaughter by carrying or using a firearm. If you find that the defendant committed second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter, and you find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime she personally carried or used the firearm, you should find her guilty of second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter with a firearm. A firearm is defined as any weapon, including a starter gun, which is intended to, or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any firearm, muffler, or firearm silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun. The term firearm does not include an antique firearm unless the antique firearm is used in the commission of a crime. If you find the defendant committed second-degree murder or a lesser included offense of manslaughter, but you are not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that she personally carried or used the firearm, then you should find her guilty only of second-degree murder or the lesser included offense of manslaughter. Justifiable use of deadly force on page 8. It is a defense to the crime of second-degree murder, including the lesser included offense of manslaughter, if the actions of the defendant constituted the justifiable use of deadly force. Deadly force means force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. Great bodily harm means great, as distinguished from slight, trivial, minor, or moderate harm. The defendant does not have the burden of proving that she was justified in using deadly force. Instead, for you to find the defendant guilty, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was not justified in using deadly force. The law on justifiable use of deadly force is as follows. Defendant was justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent A, imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against her or another. If the defendant was not committing any crime, other than the alleged second-degree murder or any lesser included crime for which the defendant is claiming self-defense or defense of others, and if she was in a place where she had a right to be, then the defendant had no duty to retreat before using deadly force. On the other hand, if at the time the defendant used deadly force, she was committing second-degree murder or manslaughter, or if at the time the defendant used deadly force, she was not in a place where she had a right to be, the defendant had a duty to retreat. The duty to retreat means the defendant had the legal obligation to use every reasonable means to avoid danger before using deadly force. The law does not require the defendant to retreat if she was placed in imminent danger of great bodily harm or if she was placed in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, of imminent danger of the commission of burglary and or false imprisonment against herself and or others, and it would have increased her own danger to retreat, or if retreat, it would have been futile. But if the defendant had a duty to retreat and she could have safely retreated, but did not do so, then her use of deadly force was not justifiable. If the defendant was in a dwelling or residence in which she had a right to be, she had no duty to retreat and had the right to stand her ground and use or threaten to use force, including deadly force, if she reasonably believed that such conduct was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against herself or another. Burglary is defined as follows: entering a dwelling owned by or in possession of another, and at the time of entering the dwelling, the unauthorized person had the intent to commit the crime of false imprisonment. Dwelling means a building of any kind, whether such building is temporary or permanent, mobile or immobile, which has a roof over it and is designed to be occupied by people lodging therein at night.
Nothing gets Brandon's rooster heart like jury instructions. No, I love jury instructions. We need more jury instructions and longer. Let's talk about the flintlock pistol and the 50 caliber Brown Bess rifle, because they were used in commission of this crime. It's ridiculous.
Together with the enclosed space of ground and outbuildings immediately surrounding it. The enclosure need not be continuous, as it may have an ungated opening for entering and exiting. For purposes of burglary, a dwelling includes an attached porch or attached garage. False imprisonment is defined as follows: to forcibly or secretly confine or abduct another person without lawful authority to do so. Secretly means the defendant intended to isolate or insulate. Secretly means the victim in this case, Pedro Jimenez, so that's a typo, intended to isolate or insulate the defendant and or the minor child and or the minor children from meaningful contact or meaningful communication with the public. I'll repeat, that was a typo. So secretly means the victim in this case, Pedro Jimenez, intended to isolate or insulate the defendant and or the minor child and or the minor children from meaningful contact or meaningful communication with the public. Confinement of a child under the age of 13 is against the child's will if such confinement is without the consent of the child's parent or legal guardian. In
I'll try and
deciding whether
find
the
it
defendant is justified in the
till later.
use of or deadly force, you must consider the circumstances at the time the force was used. The danger need not have been actual. However, to justify the use of deadly force, the appearance of imminent danger must have been so real that the defendant actually believed the use of deadly force was necessary. Moreover, to justify the use of deadly force, a reasonably cautious and prudent person under the same circumstances must have believed the use of deadly force was necessary. The defendant is presumed to have held reasonable fear of imminent peril of death or great bodily harm to herself or another when using defensive force that was intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm if
This is just boilerplate. So let's rewatch the video for those of you who might not have seen it. It's a cat. Just going back, you can hear them start arguing. The audio is horrible. I believe it was better the other time we heard it. The audio is horrible on this one, and you can hear him scream. Then you can hear the shot. Then you can see him run off over here. She will then enter and say something like, "You want me to drive you to the hospital? You'll be fine unless I hit a major artery. You want me to drive you to the hospital? It'll be fine." And over here, there is a cat that Marissa, because she hates cats, thought was a dog. That was the gun. I had a video where you could hear him scream something like, the defense claims he screams, "I want to die. Go on, kill me," or something like that. And I hear it. I don't want to be killed, or I don't want to be die or something. But I can't hear it in this video. You can hear him say, and now he'll come into the frame over here. I'll bicken it so you can see it. Over here, focus over here. Just ran between the cars.
I thought you hit a major artery. You'll be fine. Are you want to come to the hospital? No? Okay.
I hear it as unless you hit a major artery. And her story was, I was being beaten savagely on the floor. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get to my phone because my phone was outside somewhere, and I couldn't get to my phone, and it was horrible. And what does she do? She just saunters off to a different place. She doesn't go get her phone in her purse that she claimed that she was so afraid she couldn't go get it because he might be lurking for her. She is carrying around the pew. Then she drops that pew outside because she's so afraid he's going to come back. He drops the pew. So yeah, I don't, yeah. On Thursdays we do chest, because if you want to hook Sue with the Gary, Indiana ditcher with a spicy banana, your pecs better be effing swole. I just had my pecs massaged today. That hurt like hell. And I don't know what's wrong with Gary, Indiana. Sue doesn't like it. I heard it as not like I hit a major artery. Yeah, something like that. What we're not seeing is what appeared before the pews. What we're not seeing is all the evidence that he apparently was going absolutely crazy and beating her up, as you can clearly hear in the videos, all her screaming from when she was thrown on the floor, when he tried to get into the house, when her mom said he broke through the window, when he arrived at the house. All of this, none of this is seen on the video. What is seen is him saying ow after being shot, running away, and her just moseying across the lawn, not going to pick up the purse that she claimed she couldn't get to because she was so afraid of him that she couldn't go out there and pick up her purse, because what if anything happened? I don't think it's a good video for her. Come on, Marissa. You've been in this game long enough to know that question. You saw her on the stand yesterday.
Reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. Page 13, determination, you should consider the total circumstances, including but not limited to whether the defendant made the statements, she had been threatened in order to get her to make them, and whether anyone had promised her anything in order to get her.
She claims it had been an ongoing, at least 30-minute attack, retreat, attack, retreat, attack, retreat. So he must have been going in and out of the house on those videos, screaming at her, I'm going to get you, or something. But the only video we have is this. If the other parts had been on video, why didn't the defense bring them up?
Her to meet them. If you conclude the defendant's out-of-court statements were not freely and voluntarily made, you should disregard them. Rules for deliberation. These are some general rules that apply to your discussion. You must follow these rules in order to return a lawful verdict. You must follow the law as it is set out in these instructions. If you fail to follow the law, your verdict will be a miscarriage of justice, and there is no reason for
there is no more video.
All of us are depending upon you to make a wise and legal decision.
There
in this
should be
matter.
more video
This
if
case
the
must be
mom's
decided
story is
only upon the
correct.
evidence that you have heard from testimony of the witnesses and have seen in the form of exhibits and evidence and these instructions. This case must not be decided for or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry at anyone. And the lawyers are not on trial. Your feelings about them should not influence your decision in this case. Your duty is to determine if the defendant has been proved guilty or not in accord with the law. It is a judge's job to determine a proper sentence if the defendant is found guilty. Whatever verdict you render must be unanimous. That is, each juror must agree to the same verdict. Your verdict should not be influenced by feelings of prejudice, bias, or sympathy. Your verdict must be based on the evidence and the law contained in these instructions. And deciding a verdict is exclusively your job. I cannot participate in that decision in any way, so please disregard anything I may have said or done that made you think I preferred one verdict over another. Page 18, verdict. You may find the defendant guilty as charged in the information or guilty of such lesser included crime as the evidence may justify or not guilty. If you return a verdict of guilty, it should be for the highest offense which has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. If you find that no offense has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then of course your verdict must be not guilty. Only one verdict may be returned to the crime charged. The verdict must be in writing, and for your convenience, the necessary forms of verdict have been prepared for you, and they are as follows. It's pretty simple. Page 2 is the date and the jury foreman. You don't have a copy of this, but I'll hold it up. So it's really a one-pager. You have 3 choices: not guilty, guilty of manslaughter as a lesser included offense, or guilty of second-degree murder. If you find Ms. Link guilty of any of the crimes, there are interrogatory findings regarding the firearm. So you have to make a finding for the manslaughter. If she actually used the firearm, yes or no are your options. Similar options for second-degree murder. You'll have the options of whether or not she actually possessed the firearm during the commission of the offense. Also options of yes and no. You'll then go to number 2. Did she discharge the firearm during the commission of the offense? Then you'll go to number 3. Did she discharge the firearm causing death during the commission of the crime? It's pretty self-explanatory. And as I said earlier, the lawyers will have an opportunity to make their closing arguments to you. The state gets to go first. And for the state, we have,
May I please report?
yes.
Counsel.
No, you can hear him say something. I might have found another video the other day where the audio was a little bit clear. You can hear him yell something like, "I don't want to die," or "Don't kill me," and no, "Don't kill me." And the state claims he said, "Don't kill me," and the defense says, "Well, go on, kill me," is what they claim.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. On June 25th, 2022, Pedro Jimenez was murdered. He was murdered by his 9-year relationship, his spouse, his wife, his defendant, Daisy Link. Earlier that day, Pedro Jimenez was picked up by friends. Miss Link knew that. He went over there and was there for a very long time. And that made Miss Link angry. He wasn't home. He wasn't spending time with her or his children. He was with friends. He's a trucker. He's never home. Why aren't you spending time with me? Her mother's there. Her children are home. Her mother flew in for a barbecue. Why aren't you spending time with me? And so what does she tell her mother? I'm going to go pick this idiot up. He's probably drunk off his ass. And she goes. She's not afraid. She goes there, unafraid, uninvited. And she waits outside, and minutes pass. And she asks Pedro, "Where are you?" And he doesn't respond. And so she goes inside to look for him, unafraid, not scared, uninvited. And she
He was on a substantial amount of cocaine.
sees him, and he says, I'm coming. And she pulls him out of the house and takes him home. Their home. Not her home, but their home. And then they go and get beer. And they continue acting like a family, a toxic family. No doubt about that. We were the first ones to tell you it was a toxic family. We're the first ones to speak. We're the last ones to speak. It is our burden. But we were very upfront with you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This is a toxic relationship. 2 people that should have never been together. Ms. Link said Pedro Jimenez was a good guy. I disagree. I don't think he was a good guy. But he didn't deserve to be murdered that day. And so they fight. Why? Because Pedro has his suspicions. He accuses her of cheating. He's never home. This is his wife of 9 years. And he accuses her of cheating. And she denies it. And they continue fighting. And then he backs off. And he accuses her again. And they fight about that. And then he backs off. And they continue fighting. Over and over again. Until Pedro gives up and leaves. Miss Link already had the gun at that point. And she goes outside to smoke her cigarette. And Pedro comes home. And she sees him. And she says, you know what? I'm done with this. You're never home. You're not around our kids. My mom's here for a barbecue. Which, mind you, happened earlier that day that he missed. You know what? You're right. I did cheat on you. And what does Pedro say? She's holding the gun at that point. He says, as she's pointing the gun at him, do it. Do it then. I want to die. I gave you everything. His voice drops and he turns and starts walking away. And then he realizes, as the gun is pointing at him, that Miss Link is serious this time. We heard that they were a toxic relationship. He hit her just like she hit him. And he started to run. And she fired. And it went through his foot in an upward manner through his thigh, hitting his ephemeral artery. Pedro had cocaine in his system, yes. He had alcohol in his system, yes. He had marijuana in his system, yes. But we heard from Dr. Mathis that coke actually kept him alive. He would have died faster. And so what does Daisy do? She mocks him, belittles him. It's not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. A couple seconds pass. As he's running away, fleeing from her, he's the one in fear. You sure you don't want to go to hospital? No? Okay. And then she tosses the gun. She goes back to where she shot, and she picked up the casing that was never found.
Objection, fact not in evidence.
So this is argument of what the lawyers believe the evidence showed you. You should rely on your memory of what the evidence was. You can continue.
And then Daisy realizes, wait, my neighbors heard that gunshot. Let me go see where Pedro is. And she goes looking for him. And she doesn't call 911. And she finds him. And he's laying on the ground. He had been running, hiding in bushes, scared. And she finds him. And what does she do? She goes up to his body as he lies there dying, begging for help, asking her, pleading her, call 911.
Objection, facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
And she goes through his pockets, takes his phone, takes his identification, and walks back to the car. And she hides that stuff because she doesn't want anyone to know who he is. Because if they find out who he is, they'll figure out she was the shooter. And so finally she walks back and starts rendering aid because she realizes what's about to happen. He's about to die. And so that is the time that she calls 911. And she lies to the 911 operator. She says, I have no idea who this person is, despite being married to him for 9 years. I don't know what his date of birth is. I don't know how old he is, despite being married for 9 years. I just found this random man. I was walking around in the alley, despite being married to this man for 9 years. Officers arrive, and she asks, Pedro, what happened? What the fuck happened? She knew, and she lied, and she lied, and she lied. Officers were kind to her. They let her go back to the home. This is a spouse. She's scared. They didn't know what was going on at that time until Detective Danny Morales shows up. Seasoned homicide detective. And he sees a woman in the middle of the area. He doesn't know who she is, and he approaches her, and she becomes aggressive. In fact, that night she threw a chair at him. And so he detains her, and as he detains her, as he pats her down, trying to calm her down, trying to get a hold of the situation, she starts hiding the keys in her pocket. The keys of that same Chevrolet Trax with Pedro's stuff in it. that would identify him, that would link her to this crime. Eventually, they bring her to the homicide headquarters. She never denies that they lived together, never denies that he lived there, never denies their relationship. Changes her story over and over and over again. Listen to it, it's an hour and a half long. An hour and a half of changing statements, of changing stories, giving more detail, taking that detail back. We gave you a transcript as well. Read it over. She changes her story over and over and over again. Officers find a firearm, that same firearm that belongs to her. The same firearm that she used to kill Pedro. And that night they arrest her, but that's not where their investigation ends, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. They continue investigating. They find surveillance video that disproves what Daisy Link was saying. That shows Pedro fleeing, hiding, in fear. And they take it back and they try to download it. And because of the program, when it gets plugged back in, it gets deleted. And that's a shame. But it wasn't deleted on purpose. We heard the steps that they took to preserve that evidence. And old technology is old technology. But this defendant murdered Pedro Jimenez that night.
I'm not impressed with his closing.
So as we heard jury instructions read to you earlier, there are some rules of deliberation about how you should weigh the evidence in this case. And I want to walk through these 8 rules with you all and talk about the state's witnesses first and how you should weigh this evidence. Number 1, did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? Yes. Every single state witness was personally involved in this case, or was there the night of the murder, investigated the case, talked about what they did. Each and every state witness didn't say, well, I wasn't there, I don't know what was going on. Everyone was there. Every state witness testified to that. Kevin Bonilla was at the house when Daisy showed up and walked inside to go pick Pedro up. All the detectives were on scene. Canine officers who found firearm. Everyone there saw and testified to what they did. Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Yes, they did. It's 3 years ago, sure. But they remembered what they did. They remembered their investigations. Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? Yes. This is a trial. There are objections. Some are sustained, some are overruled. Absolutely. But not a single state witness gave a sarcastic comment. Not a single state witness argued. Everyone was very candid with what they did, what they didn't, what they remembered, and they were honest and straightforward the entire time. Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? No. No.
They want to win it.
No. Does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in this case? Absolutely it does. And we'll walk through the evidence in a few moments, but absolutely it does. Each step officers took agreed with the next step. They talked about how homicide teams work in teams, that there is a lead. That lead gives assignments. The blood trail is consistent with the video that Mr. Cisneros saw, that Detective Morales saw, that Detective Hubbard saw. It's all consistent. Has the witness been offered or received any money, preferred treatment, or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify? No. We heard nothing of that. Nothing. Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? No. We heard nothing of that. Did the witness at some other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? Not really, no. They weren't handed a deposition transcript saying, didn't you say this a couple of years ago? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when you're viewing the state's evidence, use these rules. When you're thinking about the state's witnesses, use these rules. Importantly, as we heard, as I talked about, as we have all talked about, my burden in this case, I have to prove this case to you. It is my job and my job alone to prove this case. My burden is a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. That is my burden. Just like we talked about in jury selection. If it's wet outside and we heard thunder and it's wet for miles and miles and miles, it is reasonable to believe that it rained. It is not reasonable. We have to imagine, speculate, force ourselves. Pretend that a fire truck came and sprayed it for miles and miles and miles. That doesn't happen. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant may arise from evidence, conflict of the evidence, or lack thereof evidence. And that's a really important point. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, as the judge read, as you have in your hand, second-degree murder, and we talked about this in a little bit during jury selection. What do I actually have to prove? What are the elements of second-degree murder? Number one, Pedro Jimenez is dead. Number two, the death was caused by the criminal act of Deja Link. Number three, there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. An act includes a series of related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design and purpose. An act is imminently dangerous and demonstrating a deprived mind if it is an act or series of acts that a person of ordinary judgment would know is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily injury to another, is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or evil intent, and is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. And importantly, I do not have to prove intent that she wanted to kill him that night. If it meets those three elements, in order to convict of a second-degree murder, it is not necessary for the state to prove the defendant had the intent to cause death. Merely these three elements. So let's talk about these three elements and how the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt these three elements. The first, as you heard, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there is a stipulation in this case. Pedro Jimenez is dead. There is no disagreement there, and you must take that as true. So the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the first element. We're a third of the way there already. 2 and 3, the death was caused by the criminal act of Daisy Link, and there was an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. I'm going to take these two together. I think it's important to talk about these two together. And importantly, we talk about it. There was a lot of testimony about what the timeline is, when they found a gun, when they didn't find a gun, when Daisy admitted to the crime. The timeline is really important. June 25th at 3:06 a.m., a Ring video starts recording. At 3:11, a gunshot is heard. Daisy tells Pedro, "It's not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine." Couple beats. "You sure you don't want to go to the hospital?" "No, okay." No fear, no adrenaline like she testified to, nothing. Calmness and comfort. If you pay attention closely to the right-hand side, you actually see Pedro fleeing.
%, same as yesterday.
Adrenaline, fear. Nothing. Cavalier attitude. anger, hatred, pissed off as hell. Not adrenaline, calm. And discuss Pedro's statement before she shoots. Do it, do it. I want to die. I gave you everything. That is a man who is broken by his wife of 9 years. It is not him charging at her.
A man high
It
and
is not him screaming at her. This isn't an assisted suicide. You're pointing a gun at me. Nobody says, do it, I want to die while there's a gun below you, hanging off the side. This is a man who has a gun in his face, steps away from this defendant. Do it then, do it. I want to die. I gave you everything. You broke my
This is a
heart.
stupid argument.
You just told me you're cheating on me. This is a toxic relationship with domestic violence going back and forth. And you know what Miss Link did? She lit a match and lit that fire that night because she wanted this relationship to be over. And this was the best way to do it. This was a broken man. Maybe a drug addict, never home, not really seeing his kids all that much. A broken man. He just found out that his wife was confirming his suspicions.
That's what broke him. That's why he's a terrible father.
321.
Yeah, that's
10
why
minutes
he
past.
only has
Drug
the
addict.
hesitation.
Calls 911
Yeah.
and lies about who he is, who she is, everything else.
Today, June 25, 2022, 03:21 and 57 seconds.
I already had to start fire. What is the emergency? Right, yeah, I don't know why I can hear about freaking okay, Donald, I want you to track the phone to see where you are. Do you know what happened to him?
I have no idea. He's bleeding everywhere.
Is he awake and breathing? And let's place you at 1300. 18 miles down. Where? Where? Are you in Homestead now? Yes. What is the phone number you're calling from? What did I say? 52. 9656 So that you get home to police when I well, fire is already around.
Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. 3:27. 6 minutes. 6 minutes after she calls 911, Officer Nicholson arrives first on scene, and she lies to him. And what does she say to Pedro? Despite knowing exactly what happened. Pedro, what the fuck happened? She knows. She shot him. She pointed the gun at him and discharged it as he ran away. What the fuck happened, Pedro? I shot you is what the fuck happened.
Language, sir.
He's doing too much.
He's too
Officer
slow and then too
Nicholson
yelly.
asked, Pedro,
Yeah.
Pedro, what happened? And she says,
He doesn't know how to
listen closely,
balance.
I hit a major artery. Listen to it carefully. This is his body worn camera. She says, I hit a major artery. That's an admission, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. She shot and fired. And it links up directly to her statement earlier where she mocked him. It's not like I hit a major artery. She knew what she was doing. She was aiming that gun on purpose. This is not a ricochet. It didn't hit the ground, bounce up. She shot it at him as he fled. We actually see Pedro Jimenez's last breaths ever. We watch him die. You're coming. His last moments on earth. His wife pretends he didn't know that she murdered her. Victim pronounced deceased at 3:40 a.m. Officer Rodriguez speaks to the defendant, who again lies to him. He left in a van. I don't know who his friends are, despite going there earlier in the day and picking him up. The van that officers wasted precious time searching for. She sent them on a wild goose chase. Later on, homicide detectives arrive. 5:40. 6:30. Daisy's sister shows up and says, "Oh, if he's dead, Daisy did it." She knew. She knew. Because she knew that it was a toxic relationship. She knew that Daisy hit Pedro and Pedro hit Daisy. That Daisy was going to light a match eventually. She knew. Between 6:50 and 8:30, Detective Cruz canvases the scene of Pedro's murder. They walk the scene, they take photographs, they try to figure out piece by piece what's going on. They don't find a gun. 9:20 a.m. when the defendant enters the hearing. Not how aggressive she is. I'm not putting that shit on. Covered in blood. Angry.
If they're gonna run a person, I gotta see for that,
I'm not putting that shit on. She even goes on to say at 3:52 in that hour and a half video that you have in evidence, why are you treating me like I did this? Why are you taking pictures of me like I did it to him? She says at 4:08, the bruises are from a car accident, which she confirmed, by the way, on the stand when I was cross-examining her yesterday. She says the bruises don't apply to this, trying to make it seem like he would hit me. Lie after lie after lie after lie. At 12:27, canines locate a firearm. I'm sorry. At 12:27, a residential search warrant is executed for Daisy and Pedro's home. And what do they find, ladies and gentlemen? Look closely. Men's shoes, men's clothing, adult men's clothing. Pedro lived there. It was his home. Same time, canines locate a hidden firearm. Hidden firearm. That was about the only honest thing she said that night, that she hid that gun. And it was her gun. And it's not until 3:39, 4:20 that the defendant begins her hearing. We know that, not just because we heard it and we can see it on video. The time of when she waived her Miranda rights and chose to speak to officers is actually memorialized on that Miranda form itself. You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to talk to me if you do not wish to. You don't have to answer any of my questions. Do you understand that right? Yes. Should you talk to me, anything which you say may be introduced into evidence against you. Do you understand? Yes. If you want a lawyer to be present during questioning at this time or any time hereafter, you are entitled to have a lawyer present. Then, yes, you cannot afford to pay for a lawyer, one will be provided for you at the cost if you want. You understand that, right? Yes. And then she waives. She voluntarily spoke to her. It says a lot of very interesting things during this statement. But I think what's most interesting here is her demeanor during this. She's crying, she's sad, she's scared, until she's confronted with one of her lies. And you can actually see her demeanor change. She's not scared anymore. She's mad. You see her demeanor change when officers catch her in a lie. What if I have you on video saying, it's not like I hit a major artery, you'll be fine? Her change in demeanor is important here. What else does she tell us? I was angry. Doesn't say I was scared. Not talking about something that happened 5 days ago. I was angry. What did she say about the shooting? One of the 5 different stories she tells that night and yesterday as well.
It was down, and then once he said, oh, you're gonna sleep outside tonight, bitch. That's when I used to speak to the dog, and I just cocked it, and I shot it, it was already cocked and everything. I shot it.
Catch that? It was already cocked. He says, you're sleeping outside. I lifted it and I shot. It was already cocked. She was outside, not scared. Her with the deadly weapon. We know Pedro never had the gun. We know he never had a weapon. She said as much.
Wasn't she lying on the ground getting beaten up? That's one of those things. Why wouldn't you say that in an interview instead of saying, well, he said I was going to sleep outside? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Baker, you cut those jeans just right. I know you didn't buy them like that. So, Baker, don't you even try that. You dance, oh, you move like there's nobody watching. But, Baker, you know I'm watching. What? Is this a song?
I don't know.
And I'm not wearing jeans, I'm wearing shorts. But thank you, Brendan.
Oh, you actually put pants on today.
I don't, it's not cold enough to wear long pants yet. I don't know the melody. I've never heard that song before. Baker, you cut those jeans just right. I know you didn't buy them like that. So, Baker, don't try that. You dance, so you move like there's nobody watching. But, Baker, you'll know I will be watching. I don't know the song.
Mm-mm.
I don't know who Brett Eldridge is.
I don't know who that is either.
If Jamie doesn't know it, it doesn't exist.
Nope. Depends on the genre. 'Cause country music is not my genre.
Officers with firearms. 5 hours prior, though, K9 already had located it. She wasn't being helpful. They already found it. They were already piecing the picture together. As she's being interviewed, they're doing their work. They find the spring camera. They find the firearm. They're doing their job. They're watching video. The defendant is eventually arrested that day, and then on June 26th, a secondary canvass is conducted with other K9 officers. They don't find it. They don't find the casing that Daisy Link hit, because she didn't want to get caught. We also know, based off the subsequent search, Pedro's path that night. Well, let's talk about this. We heard not from 1, not from 2, not from 3, but 4 officers about that video footage at Robert Cisneros' house. We heard from Robert Cisneros himself.
Of course
It's
you
an
would.
older model DVR. It's plugged in. It's hardwired.
Country isn't my thing, guys. Sorry.
I saw it with my own eyes. I saw the victim running, hiding behind bushes, running and then collapsing. A woman passing by, going to his body, manipulating his body, walking away, coming back. We actually can piece together his past.
She said 45 minutes.
The CSI photos, the blood spatter. We know that Daisy's house is where he got shot. I'm sorry, Daisy's house. This is the porch. What's important is those 2 doors. He said that he was charging at her while she was on the porch. Where? How? That's what she tells us. And after he gets shot, he runs this way. We know that from the blood spatter. Daisy walks this way. You'll be fine. Not like I'm gonna be, not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. And he continues running. And we actually see that in that same video. And blood spatter continues. We know, again, that he travels up through the alley. So he gets to this car. Blood spatter again, before collapsing and dying. Right? And look at where the Chevy tracks is. Look how far away it is. Daisy would have had to have walked feet after feet after feet to get to him and hide his stuff back in the car. It took her time. It was deliberate action she was taking, but she didn't want to get it. And we can also piece together Daisy's path that night as well.
Anyone who said he needed more time than 45 minutes, do you regret saying that? Because this guy feels like he's been talking for hours now.
He shoots and fires. He's running away from her. She goes this way, the trampoline. She says, not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. Beep, 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 beep. You sure you don't want to go to the hospital? You'll be fine. Okay. And then she comes back and she hides the firearm. Her firearm. She has to come back, get in her car, and drive. And she waits. She doesn't call 911. There was just a gunshot. She knows she hit him. She doesn't think she hit him where she hit him, but she knows she hit him. And so she goes to look for her husband of 9 years. She's not afraid of him. She's not scared of him. She's not thinking about an incident that occurred 5 days prior. This is a toxic relationship, and she just lit the fuse. I cheated on you. You're right. You're never home. So she says, my husband of 9 years, I just shot. Let me go find him. You can't take back a murder. Her rendering aid, attempting to render aid, lying officers. Lying officers are relevant. Rendering aid is hero. You can't take back a murder. She goes this way, up, and back. We know she doesn't go this way. There's a car lot. You know, it's not this way. It's her car, and it's over here. And it's important. She goes this way, up, and she walks over to Pedro's body, turns her car off, and takes his items out of his pocket: his phone, his money, his keys. She goes back and starts rendering aid. It took her time. These are deliberate steps that she took. The shot itself. He was running away. His foot.
Yes, demonstratives. Jamie.
What?
And then through his thigh.
He's carrying a mannequin doll in there.
Oh!
I think it's to show how he was shot.
Running away.
Yeah, he could have used Bender. This is how I showed it.
Does it have boobs?
Yeah, it's a female, and I think he's a little too President Trump with that hand.
He's got it up her booty.
That's sir. I'm not saying, but if you're running for president in 30 years, this will come back to haunt you. I'm screenshotting this so I can blackmail it. I mean, for posterity.
Oh, that's funny.
Grab that, dig it, grab that.
Where do you get something like that? I've never seen a mannequin like that.
Well, I think you can buy all kinds of. I should get one and have my the Ohio State jersey on it if it ever comes here. It's stuck in Copenhagen. It is, and that's why I am very, very, very distraught that this man is clearly prepping this poor mannequin doll for a hot pocket.
Side eye said he got it from his closet at home. He did. He's like, hey, hang on. We don't even need to worry about it. I got a couple in my closet.
Can you go get? Sure, I could.
Yeah.
What size do you want? Do you
Yeah.
do you want the one with the surprise face or no face?
Oh my God.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh my God.
I wish he had asked before he stuck the finger there. Normally, even if it's your birthday, you just say, "Hey, is it okay, girl?"
It's never okay. Stay out of there.
His foot out through his ankle, and then through his thigh. In, out, in, out. It was a clean shot. It was a good shot. The only way that shot makes sense with one shot, from what we heard from Dr. Mathis, is when somebody is running away. That's the trajectory that
And again, choking only if it's consensual.
that is the only way that is possible.
Oh.
And if it meets the foot, it's still going through the thigh either way. It's still hitting that artery either way. This didn't
I
bounce
can't
off
take
the
him
floor
seriously.
through his foot, ricocheting,
I stopped listening an hour
and then
ago.
ending up in her thigh or his thigh. It was a good shot. Again, we can see Dr. Mathis' support. Exit. Entry. Through the femoral artery. And how do we know that it was Daisy's gun? Pay attention. Pay very close attention. Earlier in the day, we get back to the shot. What's in her hand? The firearm she hid. She got that gun. It was her gun.
God.
How do we know it's her gun? Well, we heard from criminalists from the Miami-Dade crime lab that they tested it for DNA. And the majority of that DNA belonged to none other than the defendant, Daisy Link. And how do we know that? The statistic they came up with. 1 in 28.71 septillion that it is her DNA. Septillion is 24 zeros. That's not a small number. The population of Earth is 8 billion. That's 24 zeros. It's her gun. Talk about reasonable doubt again. And this is so important because I'm about to talk about the defense witnesses.
Just about.
A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the evidence may arise from evidence, conflict of evidence, or lack of evidence. And what's important here, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's actually no reasonable doubt for the state's.
He said, if she can say no, you're not choking her correctly. We don't. That's Rumple talk. That's Rumple is the Wild West.
Evidence. But when you look at conflicts of the evidence, you should also take a look at the evidence that the defense presented. And to be clear, they don't have to do a single thing. Her attorney never has to open his mouth. I'm the only one that has to do anything. But they gave us interesting evidence, interesting testimony. And you weigh that evidence, that testimony, the same way you weigh the state's evidence. Did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified to? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We heard from her niece, Laylin, who lives in Texas, who flew to Florida 4 days prior. And what did she do? Well, I went to my aunt Crystal's house and we hung out. And then there was a barbecue a couple days later. And I saw some injuries to Daisy, but I can't tell you where those injuries are from. I don't know what day it was taken. I wasn't there the night that he was killed. Wasn't there when he got shot. She wasn't there. We heard from Crystal. Same thing. Same thing. And she even admitted she didn't know if Pedro lived there or not. Crystal pretended like she knew. Excuse me, Lynn pretended like she knew, but she was challenged on that. You're not coming in to Florida often. You live in Texas. You don't know. It's entirely reasonable to believe that when Pedro comes home, your aunt's not telling you, hey, my husband's home. She has no idea. Her mother testified as well. She left. They said it was such a dangerous situation. She left her grandchildren with such a dangerous man. She watched her daughter get choked, nearly murdered in front of her, and she leaves. It's one thing to say, I can control this 30-year-old person. If they want to do what they want to do, they're going to do it. It's an entirely different thing, though, to leave an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old in that situation. Because it didn't happen. Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? No. Crystal denied making a statement to Detective Morales, but then challenged. She goes, well, okay. They're confrontational. I think Crystal even said, how would I know? I'm not safe. Did the witness seem honest and straightforward in answering the questions? Absolutely not. Same thing. Crystal said, I'm not a psychic. How would I know? Well, it's your sister, right? Shouldn't you know about her abusive husband? You know about the toxic relationship. You know she hits him and he hits her. But you're not a psychic. You can't put one and one together. You know your sister has a gun. I just showed you it's her gun. Did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? Does the witness testimony agree with the other testimony, other evidence in this case? Has the witness been offered or received any money for fear treatment or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify? Had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the treatment of the witness's testimony? Let's talk about Pedro Jr. for a second. And his testimony being so critical. What did he tell us? I'm here to get my mom out of jail. Here to get my
I
mom.
don't think he meant it like that.
I live with my grandma. I talked to her.
But yes.
I forget. What happens? Sometimes I say daddy shot twice 5 days before, but no, grandma wasn't there, mind you. Corrects me. If they're willing to coach a child on what to say, it is very reasonable to believe that they have been coordinating their testimony so far. They weren't there, they don't know. And a child has admitted. Children are pretty honest. And honestly, Pedro Jr. seems like a great kid. Really honest. He said, when I make a mistake about the night that my grandma wasn't there, she tells me what happened. She wasn't there. How does she know?
You're 45 minutes
Some
up.
other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court. Absolutely. How many times did they get impeached with their own depositions? Let's talk about police agreement. Now, this is an older one. And I want to bring to your attention 3 major things here. Tenant's email address, pete89.pj@gmail.com. Phone numbers, top right, my copy. My copy, not original. Not that, not filed, my copy. And then right here, where it says facing link, pay very close attention to this line. What does that look like? That looks like whiteout. My copy. And if you make it out, you can actually kind of see Pedro Jimenez's name right underneath it. But that's consistent with being whited out on her copy, not the original, her copy.
What was that?
She's whiting something out on what? I'm missing.
I thought it was a phone bill.
Let's talk about the lease agreement.
Oh,
This is
lease
an older
agreement.
one. And I want to bring to your attention
Oh, she
3
whited.
major things here. Tenant's email address, pete89.pj@gmail.com. Phone numbers.
They were given 45 minutes, but apparently she forgot that because this guy is just, oh my God, he's dragging on and he's not going anywhere. All of this could be said in 15 minutes. But lease agreements and whiteout, and what does that have to do with a murder? What the hell's going on? Well, there's a
No.
dog there's a dog barking, and no one here has a dog, so maybe we have a stray
Uh-oh.
dog. So I'll go see if we have a stray dog somewhere running around.
Right, my copy.
That's what Baker'd rather be doing.
Yeah, I would rather get bitten by a stray dog than listen to this guy. It sounds when he says whiteout, it says he's saying Mein Kampf, and it's really don't say that while your arm is up in the air. I'm just saying that's a really bad look.
Not original. Not that, not filed, my copy. And then right here, where it says facing link, pay very close attention to this line. What does that look like? That looks like whiteout. My copy. And if you make it out, you can actually kind of see Pedro Jimenez's name right underneath it. But that's consistent with being whited out on her copy, not the original, her copy. Let's talk about the newest lease as well. Defense Exhibit D. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the jury. Pedro's name's not on here. Do you know what's also not on here? Any signatures? How do we know? This wasn't updated. There's no initialing. There is no signatures, no dates, no times. How do we know Let's talk about earlier in the night. They said the toxic family fostered evil man. I'm sorry, actually, let me back up. They said he was a good guy. That's what she said. He was a good guy. Not the family though. They came to rescue her, but they waited for days. They were there, they weren't barbecue. They flew in the middle of the night. They looked their grandchildren. So Daisy picked Pedro up on her own volition, mind you. Pedro holding a beer. Who shows up? His children, her children, their family. They are a family. No fear, not being scared. They are a family. Even later, the victim returns to the car. Probably left some stuff in it. After all, he rented that vehicle. Who walks back to the car with Pedro and Daisy? I showed you this a few minutes ago. Pay attention to what's in Daisy's hand. A gun. That same gun. Her gun. Daisy told us an interesting lie yesterday, and her mother did too. That was completely refuted by actual evidence. They said that Pedro punched through a wall and opened this door. Well, good thing we have photographs. Tell me where the broken window is. Even if he punched through that. Look, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I don't believe in superheroes. I don't think Pedro is Mr. Elastic. He can't open that door from there. There's no broken window. There's no punch window. That didn't happen either. Lie after lie after lie after lie. Another really important thing. Let's talk about what happened 5 days prior. I believe something happened. Hell, we have pictures. I absolutely believe something happened. But not what Daisy said. Pedro Jr. was coached on what to say. How do we know that? Well, Daisy actually told us. She has cameras. They record things. That would have happened on or about the 20th or 21st. And what's really interesting here is the conveniences. It is really convenient. We have the 18th. We have the 22nd. And then the night of the murder. This is her phone. Isn't it convenient how that video doesn't exist? Isn't it convenient? What actually happened that night, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Actually happened that night. That's what happened. She was mad as fuck. Pedro's never home. On the road all the time. Off getting high. I was mad as fuck. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the death was caused by the criminal act of Daisy Lynch. She pointed the gun that we already pointed at when he made those statements. So he fled, he ran, she fired. She actually made a very surprising omission yesterday when she said that she didn't think she was going to hit him. She pointed and fired with purpose. That yesterday, contradicted by her own statement, which is full of its own contradictions over and over and over again. I didn't think it was going to hit. It is proving beyond reasonable doubt. Element 2. Element 3. There's an unlawful killing of Pedro Jimenez by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a deprived mind without regard for human life. Pointing a firearm and shooting it is imminently dangerous. Deprived mind, I don't know what's more deprived than after you shot someone, mocking them. You'll be fine. Not like I hit a major artery. You'll be fine. After breaking this man's heart and lighting that fuse. Talk about let me back up. After the state has proven element 1, element 2, and element 3, state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of second-degree murder. As you heard, there are lesser included offenses in this case. Lesser included offenses are offenses that make up the actual charge, but they're smaller. There's less there. And as you heard, in this case, it's manslaughter. What do we have to prove for manslaughter? That Pedro Jimenez is dead. That we all agree. You have to take that as true. We all agree. And 2, Daisy Link intentionally committed an act or acts that caused death of Pedro Jimenez. She lifted the gun. She pulled the trigger as he ran. As an act, caused the death.
Wrap it
We heard
up,
Dr.
dude.
Mathis say, cause of death, manner of death, homicide, gunshot wound. Daisy Link did that. I've already proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this is a second-degree murder.
It was an old lady who was taking care of her daughter's dog, and she walks with one of those, and that dog was just running, going back, and standing and barking at her because she couldn't move fast enough. So, but her daughter is on vacation, and it's really nice. She is in Spain. They have had a lot of rain, but the weather is getting better now, and she'll be back next week to pick up the dog. And it's a really cute dog, and it was just, lady, can we walk?
Oh, what kind of dog was it?
It was a Labrador. No, not a lab. Yeah, golden Labrador, and she was just, oh, it's such an easy dog to walk with, and that dog was just, you are stressing me out, lady. I need my exercise.
Oh, freaking cute.
Robin Rowe, I'm right with you. This is top 5 of the worst closing statements I've ever heard.
He just is droning on and on, like, wrap it up.
Yeah,
Now he's
and it's
back
just,
to like, what did I prove for manslaughter? It's like, why didn't you talk about that earlier? Like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, do you also put them at your mom's house and she has one of those, I don't know what they're called, metal thingies, and it was just wah, rah, rah. Listening while writing a happy birthday poem to my daughter-in-law for her birthday. It's tradition in my family for me to write everyone I heard. It's a 40th. Oh, happy birthday, daughter-in-law. And you can always write, roses are red. You're only 40, so not close to death. Baker is a Dutch guy, but he never makes fudge lie. A walker. Yes, a walker.
Okay. Because I was like, you're doing all this noises.
Yeah, but I
and
don't
I'm
know,
like,
because she's not having a rollator, how you pronounce it. The one with the little, no, she has the one where you put it
you have to
forward.
keep picking it up and it doesn't have the wheels.
Yeah, and that dog was just, I am losing my mind, lady.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear that click clack in my head because there's a lady I worked with that had one.
Well, Beth, it's because it's so absolutely boring. He had 45 minutes and he's been going for over 50 minutes now. And I have it at 1.25 speed. We're only 2 minutes behind, so I'm not ruined the experience.
But I've also proven manslaughter as well. Aggravation of a felony by carrying a firearm. This is important too because you will have a verdict form that you will have to make certain decisions on. If I've proven my case, you must make the determination beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link actually possessed a firearm during the commission of the crime. She's admitted that. Whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link discharged a firearm, she's committed that. Whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Daisy Link discharged a firearm and doing so caused death or great bodily harm to Pedro Jimenez. He's dead. Proven that. This is really important too. Justifiable use of deadly force. Self-defense. That's what this case is. That's the defense that they had put on. The defendant was justified in using deadly force if she assumed reasonably that such force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or the imminent commission of burglary to a dwelling or false imprisonment against herself. I'm not going to talk about those because there's no evidence of those.
I do the break so we can speed him up.
But let's talk about imminent for a second. I had a conversation with Mr. Cruz during jury selection. I threatened him, remember? We were at Publix in the line. I cut him. He said some words to me. I said, I'll see you outside. I lifted my shirt. I showed him my gun.
What?
Imminent. It is happening right there, right then. Not 5 days before, not hours before, right then, right there. There was a lawyer on the panel who mentioned a bus, 200, 300, 400, whatever it was, feet away. And he said, that is imminent. No, it's not, because there can be an intervening cause. Car accident. Imminent. Right away. As the judge showed you, your verdict form will look a little like this. I couldn't fit in the signature line for the foreperson in the data time, but this is what you'll get. This is something you'll get. And you're gonna have to make a decision here. Guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of manslaughter, or not guilty. Well, again, I've proven my case beyond a reasonable doubt. So check off second-degree murder. And as we talked about already with the aggravation of a firearm, she did actually possess a firearm. She did discharge a firearm. And she did cause death. That's what your verdict form will look like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because there is only one verdict in this case that is consistent with the evidence, consistent with the facts of this case. And the only verdict that justice demands, and that's this defendant, Daisy Link, is guilty of second-degree murder. Thank you.
Now for the defense.
Oh, I thought somebody was in the courtroom.
Sure. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to the jury room for a few minutes and we'll come back out and then.
I looked up so fast and I was like, who the heck is clapping in the courtroom? I would lose my mind. You got me.
72% says guilty, 28% says not guilty. Now we're going to do the new thing that we started because Brandon asked us to do that earlier. Rate the closing. And I can only do 4 scores because that's how many. So it's going to be A, B, C, D. I believe that's the 4 first letters. So now, how would you rate his closing arguments? Did they really do the job? Do you feel that he prepared the jury? Did you feel that he hit all the bullseyes, crossed all the I's, dotted all the T's? Did you feel like, oh my God, this was the summary we needed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt Daisy was absolutely going cray-cray, playing predator on her front lawn? Or was it kind of a wishy-washy, boring people to death kind of things?
All of the above.
I love that I just gave an explanation and Coke Fairy asked, where's the 5th letter? 6th letter. I just said I can only do 4 letters. Why didn't you do it more? Because I can't do more. Well, at least he made you do some. I could go and clean my bathroom as well because nothing happened. Miss Emily's class is here. Oh, nice. I'll keep it. Yeah. But Miss Emily was having a guest on today. Oh, we can't call her Miss Emily. She's married. Isn't that Mrs.? No. Which one is the one who's married?
Is it Ms.? No. Yeah, Miss. Not Miss, but like
Mrs.
Ms.
Mrs. is when you're married.
Mrs.
Yeah, we had one teacher when I started school where we still had to go by her last name. Other than that, we had some teachers who went by their last name, but that was just because it was more unique last name than, other than that, we were on first name basis with our teachers. Yeah, this is going and, well, she didn't really give a confession. Kinda. But everyone calls teachers Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's wrong, Zach. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I know you finished 5th grade last year, but there is a difference between being married and not being married.
Did Zach go back to school like Billy Madison? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, he just never finished school. It's because he came in today and said, oh, I found out that when honeybees are attacked by hornet, they will attack it, swarm it, and then they will vibrate and heat it up and cook it from the inside. I said everyone who had biology in 5th grade knew that.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I showed the video earlier, Jamie. You should watch the show sometimes.
Oh, I was seeing some of it. I didn't know what was going on. There was just bees like going crazy. And I was like, what is he showing?
Zach, I am treating you as well as most other people in chat. You and Sue are getting exactly the same treatment. So don't come running.
Don't be sad, Zach. It was when you said you just finished the 5th grade, it just made me think of a grown man like Billy Madison sitting in a kid's class trying to pass the 5th grade.
Funny that we saw some Japanese honeybees attack a hornet, and you can see how they attack it and then grabs its legs so it can't run away.
So so they really do just like go crazy on a wasp, on a hornet. Is it a hornet or a wasp?
I don't know the difference, Jamie.
I don't really know the difference either, to be honest.
No.
I know
So
they're
why
both mean.
did you ask that question? Because now we're both going to look dumb.
Well, I just know they're both mean. And cute little bumblebees and honeybees are just so innocent.
Well, I don't know if you'll call these innocent, but for those of you who missed it, this is biology on a budget. This is a big old mean hornet. These are honeybees, and this is coming for lunch. Got one. And attack. And attack. And they can't sting because I think these are stingless bees. I'm not sure, but I think they are. So they will swarm it, and then they'll just start vibrating so its core temperature rises. And that's how they defend their nest.
Oh, they're so cute. Look at them.
Well,
Get 'em.
they're cute, but they're very efficient killers.
Well, good for them.
Yeah, that's how they defend their nest.
Because hornets and wasps are
Typo on
nasty.
page 9. You all should have another copy, right?
This one.
Yes, it's a single page. I've already swapped it out in the one that I read into the record and the copy that will go with the clerk report.
I haven't watched
as the
any of it.
official Jury instructions. I'm going to ask the jury in front of all of us to swap out page 9 for their copy for the clean copy Lisette's going to give them. They're identical copies. I like for them to have their own copies. Does anyone have an objection to them taking back their own personal copies of the jury?
I would, just a little strategy. If I was the defense lawyer here, I would try and keep it very short, very precise. Hit the facts that, well, she was at her own home. He had no right to be there. They had been fighting. He had attacked her earlier. I wouldn't go into this guy's 1 hour long diatribe. Can you get it? You could get those the highlights, and don't go into how bad the family looked on the stand. Just keep it. She was defending herself. I would say if he's efficient, send the jury back. What time is it? It's almost 1 o'clock. They were supposed to have lunch at 12, but send the jury back within half an hour. And I think they would look positively on him because the other guy was just droning. And don't do the yelling and screaming he did. I think that would be a good idea.
Instructions?
Objection.
State. Okay, so can I bring them back in?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
needs to.
I know that I read the correct wording into the record, but because we're allowing you to take your own copies back with you, and I just want, so
Yeah, it's
take out page
droning.
9, give it to Lisette. If you need a staple, I know this is getting very technical, if you need a staple or paper clip, let us know. All right, Lisette, just. Is that, does anybody want to say that? Maybe they supposed to. I do. There's paper clips up here too.
And don't go into any speculation so you get objected on. Let the prosecution be the one who lost objections.
Mhm.
And keep it short because you don't need to talk for hours about their relationship and anything. Just, you heard from the mom, they were so afraid of the bad relationship. And the state, I really hope he used all his time because, well, he's going to go up there and do a rebuttal in 48 hours as well.
Okay, so it looks like who has not swapped out page 9? All right.
God.
Everyone swapped out page 9. Thank you all for your continued attention. Now the defense will have an opportunity to give their closing argument.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, as you already know, Miss Link is presumed innocent. You are required to presume that she is innocent. And that presumption is to stay with you throughout this trial until you go back there and deliberate. When you're back there deliberating, if you decide that the state has proven their case beyond all reasonable doubt, then that's another story. But she doesn't lose that presumption.
I don't know if it's a better view over on Smart TV.
Opportunity to give their closing argument.
The audio is better. Yeah, audio is better. And of course, we lost the feed just as. Why did you send us over here, Restless Mom?
And that presumption is to stay with you throughout this trial.
Oh, this is better.
So you go back there and deliberate.
And audio is better.
When you're back there deliberating, if you decide that the state has proven their case beyond all reasonable doubt, then that's another story. But she doesn't lose that presumption until you reach that decision, if you reach that decision. If you remember, because it's been weeks already, but during jury selection, there was a juror sitting in the back, in the corner, and we were talking about that example that I gave about the cat and the mouse and the hole in the box. You all remember that? Okay. There was this one juror who was sitting in the back, and he said, I can't make a decision because I don't have enough information. Well, as I explained to him, the cat is presumed innocent. You're not convinced that the cat's guilty, right? No, I haven't been convinced. Okay, well then, your decision is not guilty. He's presumed innocent, so your verdict, right? Your verdict is not guilty. If that changes, if you're convinced otherwise, then you change it. But if you're not, the verdict is not guilty. It's pretty simple. I would submit to you that right now, before I say another word, every single one of you should vote not guilty. I'll explain in a moment, but you should, because the state has not overcome the reasonable doubt in this case. Now remember, I will remind you, I don't have to prove that Miss Link was justified in pulling the trigger. They have to prove that she was not justified.
We haven't seen Helen from Holland in a while, Jamie. I hope she's doing fine.
Me too.
Actually, a lot of our Dutch friends have been gone. They hate us.
Are they on vacation or something?
No, yeah, well, in Denmark it is actually vacation week this week, so maybe. But the Russian has been here a couple of days.
And they haven't. Now, I want to talk a little bit
Come on now.
about some of the things that the state said a moment ago. They said a lot. They said that Daisy was upset because Pedro wasn't home. There's no evidence of that. They just made that up. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. Whatsoever. Point to one witness, one piece of evidence that establishes that. You won't find it because it hasn't been introduced. It's their burden to prove it. They want to say something, they want to allege something, they have to prove it. They can't just get up here, say it, and say, oh, you got to believe us because we're the state. Believe everything we say, believe nothing that the defense say. We're the good guys. It doesn't work that way. They have to prove it. Daisy's mother flew in for a barbecue? That's what he said. You know that's not true. And they didn't even have that barbecue. And yes, they were going to have a barbecue the next day. You heard why. Number one, because she lives in Texas and she has other family that she doesn't get to see, so she's going to see them. And number two, they don't want to make it obvious that Daisy's leaving because they don't want Pedro to flip, which he did anyways. But they don't want him to flip, so they're doing it in a way that he won't find out. That was the testimony. Have they rebuffed that testimony? Have they proven that it's not true? No, they haven't. The most that they've done is, well, maybe it's true, maybe it wasn't. Have they disproven it? They have not. Can you point to a single piece of evidence, to testimony, to anything that rebuffs that? You cannot, because it doesn't exist. The state mentioned about phone calls between Pedro and Daisy. Pedro didn't have a phone because he tossed it after he almost beat Daisy to death a few days before. And then he had to get another phone, and you heard testimony about that. You heard testimony about that. When he went to his friend Kevin's house to do all that coke and to buy all that cocaine so he could have a party while he's driving a big rig across the state, snorting cocaine, he didn't have a phone. He didn't have a phone because he tossed the phone after he almost killed Daisy a few days before because he didn't want the police to track him.
Objection, backline of evidence.
Overruled.
It wasn't evidence, she testified to it. I'm not making it up, I'm telling you what was in evidence. You can use your own recollection about what you heard, but we all know that that came out in evidence. I'm not making it up. The state has repeatedly said that was their home. No, it wasn't. They can't just say it and say, there, we proved it. They haven't proved it. This thing is really blurry. But for future reference, this is Defense Exhibit A. It is 3 pages long. Pedro Jimenez had 2 driver licenses. These driver licenses, both of them, can't see it here, but you can see it yourself when you go through the evidence, both of them have his mother's address. You have seen lease agreements where he is not on the lease document. You have heard testimony from multiple people, including his son, that said he didn't live there. But most important, this is Exhibit F, Defense Exhibit F. This thing's horrible. You can look at it when you're deliberating. This is a court order. A court order. Now, the judge read the instructions, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the instruction that she read to you says. And I am talking about page 11 of the instructions, which you will all have with you in the back. Parental rights. The court has taken judicial notice that there are no court records in Miami-Dade terminating the parental rights of Pedro Jimenez. That is right. During my opening statement, I told you he lost his parental rights. I didn't say terminated, I said lost. When your parental rights are terminated, that means it's terminated. That means there's no coming back. They're gone. When you lose your parental rights, you can get it back. And this order provides a pathway for Pedro Jimenez to get his rights back. You know what that pathway is? First page, bottom. Substance abuse assessment, individual therapy, parenting therapy. Domestic violence. Domestic violence.
She brought him back to the house and had sex with him and forced him to sleep in another room. Why are you bringing this in?
September 20th, 2019. Ever since September 20th, 2019, that man was limited to seeing his children by court order 1 time a month under the supervision of his mother, who you've heard doesn't even live in this state. And you've heard no evidence or any indication that she ever came back, because she didn't. And he gets to have FaceTime calls with the children at the sole discretion of the mother. The sole discretion of the mother. Do you think courts and judges limit a parent's ability to see their children flippantly and for no reason?
Yes, absolutely. I have watched a ton of cases. The one who cries the best gets the most rights. And yes, fathers are losing parental rights. Some of them, yes, they are bad parents, but others is absolutely bullshit because the system is weighted against the dads. I don't know if you know this. This is a murder case. It's not, should he have more visitation with his kids? Why are we spending this amount of time on a piece of paper you didn't bring up doing? You didn't interview her about this one. You just mentioned that he had supervised visitation with her, but she still brought him to the house. This is like Lindsay Gaetani putting Frank back in prison when she gets tired of him. This is bullshit. This has nothing to do with a murder.
They did it because Pedro Jimenez was a drug addict, a cocaine abuser, an alcohol abuser, and a wife-girlfriend abuser. And, as you've heard throughout the course of this trial, he was doing nothing to get those rights back. He was doing the opposite. He was on his way to losing them permanently. Why? Because 5 days before he died, he beat Daisy Lane halfway to death.
But you didn't report it to the
Beat her
Popo.
halfway to death. Smashed her skull in. Did it in front of his 7-year-old son. Did it in front of his 5-year-old daughter. Did it in front of 4 other kids. 4 other kids who were present.
We had an agreement as well. We had a court order, but then we
The
just...
state got up here and told you Pedro was not dangerous? Are you kidding me? Is that not the very definition of a dangerous man? He proved what he's capable of just 5 days before this happened.
I'm just taking that off screen because that's not okay for YouTube. It's a mannequin that they used to show how he was shot.
The state said a lot of things during their closing. I didn't agree with any of it except for 2 things. One thing that they acknowledged, Pedro's not a good guy. I agree. No, he wasn't a good guy. No, he was a cokehead, wife-beating lunatic. That's what he was. He terrorized and traumatized Daisy Lynn. He terrorized and traumatized his own children, and he terrorized and traumatized other children. This is a man that was capable of beating a woman halfway to death in front of children, in front of his own children. That's dangerous. Whether Daisy acted afraid of it or not doesn't change what he did. Whether Daisy made a flippant remark or made fun of him or insulted him doesn't change what he did. The state wants you to ignore and forget that he did that. Well, they can ask you to forget whatever, but you know what happened. This order Paragraph 3 of this order, Exhibit F, the minor children, Pedro Jimenez and Mia Jimenez, shall remain in the legal and physical custody of the mother, whose name is Daisy Mick. Next paragraph, the non-custodial parent of Pedro Jimenez and Mia Jimenez is Pedro Jimenez. And then further down, Pedro Jimenez has not substantially complied with his case plan. A brief description of this plan is as follows: substance abuse treatment, assessment, individual therapy, parenting, domestic violence. He didn't do it then, he wasn't going to do it in 2022. Quite frankly, it's clear that he was never going to do it. He was less concerned with getting back his kids and having more time with his kids. He was more concerned with getting high and beating up Daisy Link.
And this is sorry, I'm cutting. This is bullshit, because we know for a fact that there are evidence that the mom wanted to take Daisy's kid away from Daisy because Daisy is also a drug addict, but the judge kept it out, and now they can just shit on his character. She was a drug addict as well, if we are to believe what was in the messages from her mom. She wasn't coming to save Daisy. She was coming to take the kids from Daisy. But the state wasn't allowed to put that in. And now a custody agreement we haven't talked about is the sole piece of evidence that this guy is guilty. This horrible judge is horrible.
State will tell you that Pedro was broken, that Daisy did all these horrible things to you. They completely ignore what he did to her. And you can't ignore that because that goes to her state of mind. That goes to her state of mind right when she pulled the trigger. Yes, she went to pick him up, and I'll submit to you, that was a bad choice on her part. But you know what? Relationships are complicated. When two people love each other, even if it changes, it's complicated. When you add children to the mix, it's complicated. When you add property to the mix, it gets more complicated. When you add the fact that these kids, even though their dad's not a good guy, they love their dad. She knows that. So yes, she doesn't want to get him arrested. She doesn't want to get him deported. She doesn't want to do that. She just doesn't want to be with him anymore, and that's her right. And why would she want to be with him?
She had sex with him 2 days
He
before.
did so for almost the entire course of their relationship. And you need look no further than this order to know that.
Yeah, she
The
kicked
state
him
went on
out.
to say that Daisy Link picked up the casing, the spent casing in this case. There's no evidence of that, ladies and gentlemen. None whatsoever. They can say till they're blue in the face. They have to prove it. It's their burden. And if they haven't proved it, which they haven't, then you can't accept it because it hasn't been proven. There's no evidence that she picked up any casing whatsoever. She was with police for almost an entire day from the point they got there at 3-something in the morning. So she got to the station several hours later. So she started her 11-hour-long interrogation at what, 9? So she was done, what, the following evening? That's almost 24 hours. They had eyes on her the whole time. But they want you to believe that she found this case and she got rid of it. Well, that doesn't jive with the evidence. There's no evidence of it. She told them where the gun was. She called 911. She tried to help this man as soon as she found him. And the only reason she didn't call 911 sooner is because Pedro stole her phone. The state said that the officers were kind to her. Are you kidding me? No, they weren't. They say that she threw a chair at Detective Morales. No, she didn't. There's no evidence of that. None whatsoever. There's 100 officers on there. All of them have body cams. Have you seen a single body cam of her throwing a chair at anybody? No, because she didn't. The state talked about Pedro Jr. They said one thing, and this is the other thing that I would agree with, that Pedro Jr. is a very smart boy. I agree, he is a very smart boy. Kids are honest. Yes, they are honest. And I would submit to you, Pedro Jr. was honest in his testimony. I specifically asked him, and he specifically said, I'm not telling you, nobody told me what to say. This is what I remember. Has he spoken to his grandmother in the last 3 years? Yes, because he lives with her. What's he supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? Because he speaks to his grandmother, therefore you shouldn't believe a word he says? You can judge that boy's credibility on your own. We have footage in this case which was deleted. It was lost while it was in police custody. The police only viewed one snippet, which is when Daisy Link went to Pedro while he was lying. They didn't bother to look at anything else. They didn't bother to look at any other footage when he stole her purse or when he was running back and forth the 3, 4, 5 times that he was running back and forth, that Daisy's mother told him to leave, that Daisy told him to leave, or they threatened to call the police. There's none of that. It would have been on there, but they lost it. Nobody knows how. Everybody's saying, it wasn't me, I don't know, we did everything.
But it would also have been on the Ring camera, but you didn't find that either.
Must have been the machine. It wasn't the machine. They gave the machine back to the owner. It worked fine. The only difference is a month's worth of footage is gone. I didn't delete it. The police did. The police lost it. The police destroyed it. What does that mean? They have it in their control and they lose it. That is incompetence of the highest order. This is a murder case. That is incompetence, ladies and gentlemen. You should consider that. We have a blood trail here, which begins in front of the house. The state will have you believe that at the time Pedro was shot, he was running away. He wasn't running away. He was running to the house. He was going to barricade himself inside the house where those kids were. He was going to keep her out, and he was going to do God knows what. I say God knows what because we already know what he did 5 days before. We already know that he snorted about a mountain of cocaine shortly before this happened. That was her home, which she has a right to defend. Pedro did not have an invitation or a right to be in that home. He made it clear that he was going to break into that home and lock her out and keep her away from her children, which he had no right to do. And importantly, she has every right to use deadly force to prevent him from doing that. And this is not just me talking, this is the law. This is the law, which I'm going to read to you in a moment. The law, I will remind you, that each and every one of you swore an oath to follow.
Cover Court TV's logo.
Was Daisy honest with the police from the get-go? No, she wasn't. Okay? No, she wasn't. Should she have been? Probably. But can someone really understand what's going through somebody's mind when they're in that position? I think we can all agree that what happened to Daisy Link in the 5 days leading up to this incident was extraordinarily traumatic. Unless you've been through it, it's hard to imagine what that's like. I would say it's almost impossible to imagine what that's like unless you've actually experienced it. It's very easy. It's very easy to second guess and judge somebody for their actions when you don't know what was in their mind at the time they made it, ladies and gentlemen. As I told you before, relationships are complicated. How many times, how common is it to see a couple who clearly are wrong for each other, who clearly shouldn't be together, but for whatever reason they keep coming back to each other. They keep interacting. Maybe they separate, maybe they come back, maybe they go back. It happens. Well, that's because these things are complicated. There are children involved. There's a history involved. There's a familiarity involved. And yes, there's love involved. And that makes it very difficult. So it's very easy for us to say, you should have left. You shouldn't have called them back. You shouldn't have gone.
I don't know. This defending the children. She never mentioned any of that to the police. She was just didn't want to sleep outside. We haven't seen any hospital records. We've only seen a picture where, yeah, she has a massive wound that got stitches. But I don't think we've seen anything.
Says Pedro gets to see those kids once in person, see them in person, once a month, with the supervision of his mother. Daisy had a fear, a reasonable fear, that if the court found out that she was allowing Pedro to see those kids in person, knowing that he's still being violent, knowing that he's still abusing drugs, a court could very easily and theoretically say, you know what, you're not supposed to have him around those kids, you know what he's doing, we're going to take those kids away from you. As a parent, is there anything scarier? Anything scarier than losing your kids? I don't think so.
But he
lost. You think something I'd love to hear. I can't think of anything. I'd rather be killed than lose my kids, personally.
She claims she didn't do it because she was afraid he was going to get deported. Rumor is he's from Puerto Rico. If he's from Puerto Rico, he is as American as Brandon, because that's a territory. So I don't know why we keep talking about this. And now Daisy is afraid of losing the kids, and that made her scared. But he wasn't scared that he had lost the kids. And losing the kids is not the same as terminating parental rights, because that's different. He's yelling louder than the other one, but it's just confusing everyone.
She feels the same way. That's why she did what she did. You can disagree with it. You can not like it. That's fine. That's your right. But that doesn't change the fact that at the time she pulled the trigger, she had every right to do so. This paper that you all have, jury instructions, this is the only law that applies in this case.
I am the law.
There is no other law, no other instructions that apply to this case. You are to decide your verdict based on these instructions and these instructions alone. Okay? So let's go through the instructions. Page 3. This is a really loud one. I'm sorry, I can't have it. It's the best.
You have said sorry 3 times. It doesn't make it sharper. Either you move the little or you just stop using it. And just get to it.
I can do, I'm sorry. Page 3.
Having sex. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
you all have it, so that helps.
Just not bigger than
Justifiable homicide. Use of deadly force is justifiable if done while resisting an attempt to murder or commit a felony upon the defendant, in or upon any dwelling house which the defendant was at the time of the killing. Miss Link was at her home. She had every right to be there. Mr. Jimenez had no right to be there. I don't care if his kids were there. He had no right to be there. He had no right to see them. You saw the order. He did not live there. He did not have the keys. He was not on the lease. The address was not on his license. You've heard testimony from multiple people that he did not live there. You have not heard testimony from a single witness that said he lives there. They want you to believe he lives there because it's convenient for the case. They don't want you to believe that he didn't live there, which he didn't, because they know that if you know he didn't live there, they're done. Their case is over, and I'll explain that to you in a second. So the question is, has the state proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Pedro Jimenez lived in that house? No, they haven't. At best, maybe you can all say, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. What are they pointing to prove that he lived there? Because there are some shoes and some shirts that appear to be for males in the house? Does that prove he lived there? I'm sorry, it doesn't. And use your common sense, people, okay? I still have stuff in my old house, and I've been divorced for 10 years. It's still there.
Did you have sex with your ex-wife 2 days ago? Did you spend time with your ex-wife and the kids in your house 2 days ago? Did your ex-wife pick you up and drive you to this address on the night she shot you? You're making a fool out of yourself. You forgot that your defendant invited him back into the house. And you could say having him sleep there for 2 days, one of them where she did the brown chicken, brown cow with him, could make him believe that, oh, it's good, I'm going to move back in. And get your shit out of your ex-wife's house. It's been 10 years. Move on, buddy. I know the pool boy does it better than you, but get your old shit out of her house. I have 0 items in my ex-wife's house.
My house? I don't live there. I don't have a key. I can't go there and come and go as I please. No, I have to knock on the door. I have to be allowed inside like everybody else. Was that my house before? Sure. It's not anymore. Do I still pay mortgage? Yeah, I do, actually. But I still don't have a right to go in there because it's not my house anymore.
Well, then you had a shitty divorce
That was not
lawyer.
Pedro's house. And unless they prove that it was his house and that he lived there beyond a reasonable doubt, then no. And as far as you're concerned, that was not his house. He didn't live there. He did not have a right to be there. Same page, page 3. Excusable homicide. The killing of a human being is excusable and therefore lawful. The killing is lawful, which means it's not illegal. It is lawful, not a crime. Under any one of these following circumstances, when the killing is committed by accident or misfortune, and doing any lawful act by any lawful means in the ordinary caution, okay? Number 2, when the killing occurs by accident and misfortune in the heat of passion, upon sudden and specific provocation. Can you see how that scenario could apply to this case? He's
No,
been
she has a
asked to leave
voodoo doll of
multiple
me.
times. You heard testimony.
Trust me, there's no love lost between us.
She grabbed the gun, she told him, leave. And you heard what he said. I'm not leaving, I want to die, I'm ready to die. And then he ran to go break into the house. Then she fired. And then, and only then, when she fired, that's when he started running away. It took the shot, it took her firing the gun for him to abandon his intention to break into her house. And if you are stopping somebody from breaking into your house, that is justifiable use of deadly force. And it was going to happen imminently. We know that. We saw the blood trail, we heard the testimony. He was going to break into her house. She did everything she could to stop him. He refused, so she fired the gun. And it worked, because when she fired the gun, he ran off to the alley. I want to talk about the instruction for second-degree murder. This is on page 4. You see it there. 3 elements that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in order for you to be able to convict Daisy Lynn. And this is what your case is going to come down to. Number 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. And number 3, there was an unlawful killing. So, I highlighted the relevant portions in 2 and 3, just to give you all a little guidance there. So, in order for you to convict her of anything, whether it's murder or manslaughter, of anything, you have to find that her firing that gun was a criminal act, and that her killing Pedro was unlawful. So, in other words, what your deliberations are going to come down to is whether or not this killing was justified or not. Was Daisy justified in using deadly force or not? That's it. That's the decision you have to make, and that's going to be how you reach your verdict, okay? It says it right there. So, let's fast forward. This is the key instruction in this case, ladies and gentlemen, page 8. It's the longest instruction out of all of them. It's, oh boy, look at that, it's 3 pages. 3 pages long.
Yes. Well, the story is they were outside on smoking, and then he came, and then he attacked her, threw her around. The mom was there, the mom wasn't there. She was on the ground, she shot him, she was standing up screaming. It doesn't make sense.
Sorry, justifiable use of deadly force. 3rd paragraph, okay? Defendant does not have the burden of proving that she was justified in using deadly force. Instead, for you to find her guilty, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was not justified. This is what I said earlier. I don't have to prove that she was justified, it's the other way around. They have to prove she was not justified. So have they proven that she's not justified? Have they proven it beyond all reasonable doubt? Well, let's see, let's have a look. Keep reading. The law on justifiable use of deadly force is as follows. Defendant is justified in using deadly force if she reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent the following: imminent death of great bodily harm to herself or another. So if she believes that imminently means it's about to happen, it's going to happen any moment now, that she's going to get hurt or another person's going to get hurt, you have the right to use deadly force in that instance, okay? And then there's another option, or B, the imminent commission of burglary or false imprisonment against herself or another. At the time that she shot, Pedro Jimenez was running to break into her house, to barricade her out of her house. Okay? He had no right to be there. When you enter somebody's house without permission, that's burglary. I'm going to read you the definition of burglary in a moment. So that's number one. That's one felony that he was about to commit, which, according to this instruction, if she knows that he's about to commit a burglary upon her house, she has the right to shoot him, to stop him. This is the law that you are required to follow. In addition to burglary, false imprisonment. There are 2 kids in that house. Those kids are in her custody, not in Pedro's custody, her custody. By barricading himself inside the house, Pedro would be illegally separating those kids by force from their mother, without permission, without authority, without any right to do so. She has a right to use deadly force if she has reason to believe that that's about to happen. And we all know that that was about to happen. He was about to burglarize her home, he was about to lock her out of her home and commit false imprisonment upon her kids. So, moving on to the next part. This long paragraph here, right here on page 4, on page 8, this paragraph has to do with whether or not Daisy Link had a duty to retreat or not a duty to retreat. You can go through that and read it to yourself, but ladies and gentlemen, as you will see in a moment, she had no duty to retreat because she had every right to be there because that was her home. On the other hand, Pedro Jimenez had no right to be there because that was not his home. He had been told repeatedly to leave. He had been threatened that they would call the police. And he did leave, but he kept coming back. Multiple times, he kept coming back.
Someone said I'm so hungry.
She did it while her mother was there, and then he did it again after his mother left. His mother left at 1:32 in the morning.
Her.
And he still came back after that. He's terrorizing her at 3 o'clock, 3 something in the morning.
And none of them called the
I'm going
cops.
to refer you to page 8 at the bottom right here. If the defendant was in a dwelling or residence in which she had a right to be, which she did, she had no duty to retreat and had the right to stand her ground and use or threaten to use force, including deadly force, if she reasonably believed that such conduct was necessary to prevent death or great bodily harm to herself or another, or the imminent commission of a burglary or a false imprisonment against herself or another. So again, this says, again, if she has reason to believe, well, first of all, it says if she's in a place where she has a right to be, there's no question she had every right to be there. That was her home. If she's in a place where she has a right to be, she can use deadly force to stop somebody from burglarizing her home and to stop somebody from keeping her outside of the home and keeping her away from her kids who are inside the home. She had a right to use deadly force in each of those and in both of those. This is the law that you are required to follow. After this defines the crimes of burglary and false imprisonment. These are the 2 crimes that I would submit to you. The evidence has clearly demonstrated Pedro Jimenez was intent on doing and was in the process of doing, and the only reason he stopped from doing it is because she fired that shot. That was the only way that she was going to stop him from doing that, and we know that from Pedro Jimenez himself. I'm ready to die! What does that mean? I'm going to do what I want. You want to stop me? You're going to have to kill me. You're going to have to kill me.
Not entered into evidence.
Entering a dwelling owned by or in the possession of another, and at the time of entering the dwelling, the unauthorized person had the intent to commit the crime of false imprisonment.
There's no evidence of
Please
any of
tell
this,
me.
if anyone is wondering.
Please tell me, how?
All the mom said was he had smashed the window next to the door, and and then he tried to come in and she shot him, and then she didn't shoot him because she shot him later. None of this is true. He's just yelling stuff that hasn't been proven, especially not by his witnesses. So, but he's better than the prosecutor. That I actually think this is helping her.
How has the state disproven that this was about to happen?
Oh,
Can you honestly say to me that the state has convinced you beyond all reasonable doubt that Pedro Jimenez was not in the process of rushing in to barricade himself inside that house and lock Daisy Lake out? Have they disproven that beyond a reasonable doubt? If the answer is no, then your verdict is not guilty. If the answer is yes, then okay, then I would ask you to ask yourself, how have they proven it? What have they shown? What have they introduced to prove that? I would submit to you they've introduced nothing. Nothing to disprove that that man was going to do that. Certainly not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's burglary. False imprisonment. That's the next one. We're still on page 9. It's right here. False imprisonment is defined as follows.
Sometimes YouTube does things that I can't tell you why. I have the same settings I always have. But sometimes people start complaining that they get a lot of ads. I don't know why. Because I don't have it set to play all these ads.
Forcibly or secretly confine or abduct another person without lawful authority to do so. Forcibly would apply here. He was attempting to forcibly confine those kids within that house and keep the mother out of the house.
There has been no evidence of that. The only evidence of the kids being confined was the kid who was locked in the room by the mother.
The next paragraph defines secretly. You're free to read that as much as you want, but the secretly doesn't apply here, so I'm not concerned with that. The next paragraph is very important. Very important. Confinement of a child under the age of 13 is against the child's will if such confinement is without the consent of the child's parent or legal guardian. In other words, if you're locking 2 kids inside a house against the will of those kids' legal guardian, and those kids are under the age of 13, which, as you already know, those kids were ages 7 and 5 at the time, then that's false imprisonment. We know that Pedro was not their legal guardian because that's what this order says. So unless the state is going to come up here and find a way to invalidate this court order, which if they have a way to do that, I'd love to hear it. They're not going to. This is a court order, this is a valid court order, and this court order was in place in full force on that night. Daisy Link asked him to leave. He did not respect her request to leave. He was going to commit false imprisonment. And that is what this instruction tells. I'm going to keep reading. Please bear with me, but again, this is a long
They have the paper, you don't
It is
need
the most important instruction in this case, because this is what your deliberations are going to come down to. In deciding whether the defendant was justified in the use of deadly force, you must consider the circumstances at the time the force was used. The danger need not have been actual. I'll say that again. The danger need not have been actual. So it's actually legal to use deadly force against somebody, even if there's no real danger. The key is whether the person using the force reasonably believed that the danger was there. Now, I would submit to you there's no question that the danger was real. There's no question that the danger was imminent. But this instruction shows you that even in cases where there's no real danger, if you find that the person who used deadly force had reason to believe that there was a danger, that's enough. That's enough to say that the use of deadly force was justified and lawful.
Well, I'm hoping this guy is ending soon so we can play Swasia.
I'll keep reading. To justify the use of deadly force,
It's a command to Nightbot, so it'll read your Swasia level. Swasia is from what's called the treehouse case out of Florida as well. My best friend Roger was a witness.
Do you remember any description as far as the size of these men?
Yeah, I remember the size of them. I know, I could tell by the Swazer who that one was, you know, by meeting him different times up there at Paula's. I knew Swazer is, get that word right, Swazer?
Okay. I don't know what that word means, so I'm sorry.
Oh, his style, his walk, his talk.
Okay.
So that is the reason why people are trying to check out how much Swazer they have.
Appearance of imminent danger must have been so real that the defendant actually believed the use of deadly force was necessary. Pedro told her, "You're going to have to kill me. I'm ready to die." What else was she supposed to believe?
45 minutes, but
What else was she supposed
she didn't keep it with the prosecutor.
She didn't put herself in that situation. He put her in that situation. The state will tell you, oh no, she brought him to the house, so it's her fault. No, she brought him to the house. She knew she was going to leave. First of all, she was supposed to pick him up and take him to his mother's house, but she explained to you she came back because he still had his keys. She wanted him to see the kids. She wanted to make it work so that she could get away from this man finally, move away from him, not have to deal with him beating her up. And she was implementing her plan. Whether it was a good plan or not, that's up to you to decide. But that was her plan, that's what you heard. It has not been refuted by the state in any way, shape, or form. She went to pick him up. She came over while her mother was there, and you heard from her mother and you heard from her. He was obviously high on cocaine because he used a bunch of cocaine at his friend's house. He bought a bunch of cocaine from his friend. He was drinking. You heard what was in his system when he died. He was extremely under the influence of a ridiculous amount of cocaine. He was drunk. He was out of control. She brought him back, and as soon as he started becoming violent, which he did on multiple occasions, as you heard from her mother and from her, as soon as that happened, he was told to leave. He was told, 5 different times to leave, and 5 different times he left, and 5 different times he came back. You saw video of him running around. There's a video of him being told to leave a few hours before he was shot. How many times does this woman have to tell him to leave? You know, once is enough. Once is all it takes. It's my house. You need to leave. You need to leave. If you don't leave, you're committing a crime by not leaving. Okay? You're committing a crime. But he knew that she didn't want to call the police on him. He knew that for whatever reason, and she shouldn't have, but for whatever reason, unfortunately, she had a soft spot for this man. And she kept giving him opportunity after opportunity, even though, as we all know, she probably shouldn't have. But again, relationships are complicated, and you can judge her all you want, you can disagree with her all you want, but you don't know what it was like for her. And that's a decision she made. And it's understandable because, again, relationships are complicated, and that's the position that she was in. But she didn't create this position. She asked him to leave. He put her in that position by coming back repeatedly. I'm at the bottom of page 9. The defendant is presumed to have held a reasonable fear of imminent peril of death or great bodily harm to herself or another when using defensive force that was intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm to another if, this is important, A, the person against whom the defensive force was used was in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering or had unlawfully and forcefully entered a dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle. This is black and white. There's no room for interpretation here. You are presumed to be in reasonable fear and justified to use deadly force if somebody is in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering your home. That is exactly what he was doing. And unless they can prove to you beyond all reasonable doubt that that's not what he was doing, then your verdict is not guilty. Anything other than that would be a disgrace. And I know you all don't want to make a disgrace here. I think you all want to get it right. There's only one right answer here, okay? I'm confident that you're going to get the right answer. I want to go to the next page.
No!
The next paragraph B. Defendant knew or had reason to believe that an unlawful and forcible entry or unlawful and forcible act was occurring.
40 minutes ago.
This goes hand in hand with the previous.
No, an hour and 40
Reason to
minutes.
believe it was occurring. He told her he was gonna do it. He told her, you're gonna have to kill me. And she saw him doing it. And the blood trail which begins in front of that front door corroborates what she told you. The state has given you nothing to dispute or disprove that. The next paragraph, this is page 10, right over here. The very next paragraph talks about situations where the presumption of reasonable fear does not apply. Okay? So if any of these examples, there's 4 examples, if any of them were to apply, then you could come to the conclusion that, okay, well then this person didn't have a reasonable reason to believe that she was in danger of something bad happening to her. I'm going to start with the last one, with D, because this one's easy. The person against whom the defensive forces uses law enforcement. Well, Pedro Jimenez is not a law enforcement official, so we know D doesn't apply. So you can scratch out D. D is useless.
These
Okay?
nuts.
C, the person who uses defensive force is engaged in a criminal activity or is using the residence to further a criminal activity. This doesn't apply
I have
here.
some fried
Daisy
meat
was
from
not using her
yesterday.
home to conduct
I
a
don't know
criminal
what I'm doing with
activity, and she was not committing a crime
Maybe
when
some
she was just at home in her front yard, minding her own business. So C does not apply. You can disregard C. B, the person or persons sought to be removed is a child or grandchild. Pedro Jimenez is a grown man. He's a grown man who's 6'4" and weighs 250 or 60 pounds, and he could easily beat the crap out of Daisy whenever he wants, and he has on multiple occasions. So B doesn't apply. So all that's left is A. So let's read A. The person against whom the defensive forces use has the right to be or is a lawful resident of the residence, such as an owner, lessee, or title holder. Has the state proven to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Pedro is a lawful resident,
I hope not.
owner, lessee, or title holder? No. They got up here and they told you over and over it was his home, he lived there, they were family. They can say it till they're blue in the face. They have to prove it. Have they proven it? No. The only proof you've received on that topic is that it wasn't his home. You have lease agreements that he's not on. You have his license that he's not on. You have testimony showing that the locks were changed. You have testimony that he lived at his mother's house. Would he go over there to see the kids? Yes. But that doesn't mean that he lived.
No, I just changed because they were supposed to have been done no later than 12:15. Yeah, as everything else in this courtroom, nothing happens on time. The judge said she would order food between 12 and 12:15. And we are now an hour and a half late, so I changed the time for my verdict watch.
There. All the evidence that you've heard proves that he did not live there. At best, you can say, well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But if that's your conclusion, then it has not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, the state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They have not done so. I want to focus on this paragraph, which is right after A, B, C, and D. A person who unlawfully and by force enters or attempts to enter another's residence is presumed to be doing so with the intent to commit an unlawful act involving force or violence. The fact that he was forcing his way into her house, according to this instruction, allows you to presume that he was doing so with the intent of committing a violent act and committing a crime, which is exactly what gives Daisy Link the right to use deadly force. And finally, and this is important, it's all important, but last paragraph, if you find that the defendant, who because of prior threats or difficulties with Pedro Jimenez, had reasonable grounds to believe that she was in danger of death or great bodily harm at the hands of Pedro Jimenez, you may consider that fact in determining whether her actions were those of a reasonable person. They had prior difficulties. You know all about them. Isn't it reasonable for Daisy Link to fear that this man could hurt her, to fear that this man could kill her when he just did this to her a few days before? Yes, you can judge her for communicating with him and spending time with him in the intervening days, but as she said, number one, she loved him. That clouded her judgment. Number two, when he wasn't on drugs, there was no problem. The problem was when he was on drugs. And we know, without question, he was on a lot of drugs when she shot him. And what did she say? When he's on drugs, when he's on cocaine, he's a monster. And that's what he is. That's what he is. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning, top of page 11, in considering the issue of self-defense or defense of another, you may take into account the relative physical abilities and capacities of the defendant and Pedro Jimenez. Pedro Jimenez is a man, Daisy Link is a woman. Daisy Link's not a petite woman, she's a larger woman, but Pedro Jimenez was a lot stronger, was a lot bigger than her, a lot stronger than her, a lot more dangerous than her, and he's proven that he could hurt her, and he did hurt her over and over and over again.
No evidence. That's the stupid thing, because to believe if he was sniffing a mountain of cocaine, she went to pick him up because, why don't you spend time with me? But she knew he was snorting a mountain of cocaine, so it was the monster she went to pick up. But she wanted the monster to come home and spend time with her and the kids at 11 o'clock at night, even though he didn't live at the address, and her mom was there, and they were actually planning for her to leave the state to get away from him because he was the monster when he was on coke, and he had bought 6 bags of cocaine. And again, just throw it around in your head. She went to get the monster. She knew trouble were brewing, and he wasn't trying to break in or keep the kids locked in. She had locked the kids in before, because she was sitting on the porch smoking cigarettes with her mother, who actually came down there to take her kids away because she was apparently also a druggie.
You may not like her. You may disagree.
There was
with
no
her.
stand your ground.
You may think whatever you want to think. You may take exception to what she said on that video. You may do all that. But none of that changes the fact that at the time she fired that shot, that man was going to barricade himself inside that house. And according to the law which you all swore you would follow, she was justified in using deadly force.
Mr. Octava, can you go help him? It's your computer.
Oh.
Can we stop the clock, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is minutes before he gets shot. Look at him. Wandering around. It's 3-something in the morning. He's still wandering around. Walking around aimlessly. Thinking about how he's going to terrorize Daisy next, which he's been doing all day. 5 times. He's back again. You think he's back again for a good reason? You think he's back again to do something nice? You think he's back again to make up? No, he's back again to cause trouble. Does that sound like somebody who's in fear? No, that sounds like somebody who's coked out of his mind, somebody who likes to beat women up. Yeah.
Yeah. He had left her house and she went and picked him up after he was doing drugs when he turns into the monster. Because she was smoking a cigarette out on the porch. Come on now.
Yes.
Come on.
I don't know who would. Officer Edwards. Officer Edwards. Nobody would have done this to him. I don't know who would. Except on cross-examination, what she said was, I shouldn't have, because she knew she had other options. She knew. If we take her at her word, and I think we can all agree there is absolutely zero reason to take her at her word at this point. Lie after lie after lie. This happened 5 days ago. She said she spoke to the police. Maybe, maybe not. Lie after lie after lie. She shouldn't have. If that's true, despite the fact that on her phone, those videos conveniently aren't there, call the cops. Tell them. Let them know. Take your kids and flee. Your kids, your children, your 8-year-old and your 5-year-old. Take them. Get them away from that dangerous man. That's what she wants you to believe. Instead, though, what does she do? According to her, he leaves. She goes in her car, goes back home, takes a nap. Day later, day after that, Pedro comes over. They sleep together. They mentioned that, I mentioned on my closing argument that I said that the defendant was upset that the victim wasn't home. They said that's not true, there's no evidence of that. That's actually not true. She says, at some point in her statement, I don't have the timestamp, but she says in her statement, it's not fair. I told my mom it's not fair. He's always on the run, he's never home. She says directly to the officers, it's not fair, I'm upset. Almost beaten to death. These are horrible. Horrible. But as we heard, Daisy admitted she herself is an abuser. These are horrible. These happened 5 days before. Was it going through her mind when she invited him over the day after, or the day after that? Was it going through her mind when she picked him up from a friend's house? It wasn't. She had forgotten about this. She even said it on the stand yesterday. How do we know it was their home? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Daisy Link told us it was yesterday. She said Pedro never had a key, except on cross, she said, well, actually, he may have. When he left, he probably had a key to my house. They lived together, how do we know? Well, here's the thing. On Pedro's address, it has a certain, on his license, it has a certain address on it. But what else? It has that address on it, mail that was found in a car. With Daisy Link's name on it as well. They lived together. But you don't have to take the evidence like that Pedro Jr. said the same thing. He said, my dad lives in my car, or his car, because he's a trucker, he's never home. So, when he's home, he lives here. He sleeps on the couch sometimes, sure. But this is his home. He said that as much. The court order, I'm sorry, the court order, this is what they thought of it. They thought it was trash. That's what they did with it. They threw it on the ground, they didn't care about it. How do we know that? It's on video. She's giving him more than what this says. This, to them, was trash. There is no termination of parental rights. They ignored it over and over and over again. The pistol whipping episode from 5 days ago, if you take her at her word, and you shouldn't, there is no reason to take Daisy Link at her word. If you take her at her word, it happened 5 days before. And then they slept together. And then she picked him up. And the interesting thing there about picking him up from a friend's house is she says, it's a drug den. There's prostitutes, there's drugs throughout. He's a monster on drugs. Well, we have it on video of them actually arriving back from that house. You tell me if that looks like an angry, aggressive man playing with his children. Apparently high on cocaine, according to Daisy at that point. A monster is what she said. Except she let that monster hang around her children. Play with them. Be around the house. The video that was destroyed, it wasn't some cover-up, it wasn't a conspiracy. They actually explained explicitly how. Sergeant Fernandez came in and explained she was called out on scene, plugged in a hard drive. It wasn't working, so what do? They have to take it back to headquarters. There is a specific program that they use, and she explained, if they run that program on that hard drive and plug it back in, it will delete everything. It will reset the hard drive. And so what do? They attempt and attempt and attempt to get that video, but they can't. And they give up. And so they return it back to the homeowner, who then plugs it back in. It's a full hard drive. It got reset. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Daisy Link's story doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because of the gunshot and how it traveled. Because what she says is, he was charging at me, and I fired. The only way this gunshot, this trajectory, makes any sense at all is if he is running away. That upwards trajectory, through the foot, in and in, through the thigh, in and out, clean as day, is if his back is turned and he is actually running away. Otherwise, you'd have an injury that way, to the front of his body. That's not what happened here.
30 more seconds.
We know what happened
30.
here. We know that Daisy Link purposely discharged that firearm at Pedro Jimenez as he fled her. The state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty of second-degree murder, and you should find her guilty as such. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm on page 19. In just a few moments, you will be taken to the jury room by the bailiff. The first thing you should do is choose a foreperson who will preside over your deliberations. The foreperson should see to it that your discussions are carried on in an organized way and that everyone has a fair chance to be heard. It is also the foreperson's job to sign and date the verdict form when you all have agreed on a verdict, and to bring the verdict form back to the courtroom when you return. During deliberations, jurors must communicate about the case only with one another and only when all jurors are present in the jury room. If a juror goes to the restroom, the deliberation should stop until the juror returns. You are not to communicate with any other person outside the jury room about this case. Until you have reached a verdict, you must not talk about this case in person or through the telephone, writing, or electronic communication, such as an email or any other means. Do not contact anyone to...
Come on.
seats where they would be guarded by the bailiff while you deliberate. You can send a note or a phone call to your loved ones, letting them know you're deliberating before Umberto takes those electronic devices. If you need to communicate with me, so from this point on, if you're going to communicate with me, send a note through the bailiff. If you have voted, do not disclose the actual vote in the note. If you have a question, I will talk with the lawyers before I answer. So it may take some time. You may continue your deliberations while you wait for my answer. I will answer any questions if I can in writing or orally here in open court. During trial, items were received into evidence as exhibits. You may examine whatever exhibits you think will help you in your deliberations. These exhibits will be sent into the jury room with you when you begin to deliberate. If there's something missing, send a note, or we'll try to communicate with you if there's anything that we needed to keep back with us. If you need extra copies of anything, such as the transcripts, let us know. I can make 6 copies for you all. In closing, let me remind you that it is important that you follow the law spelled out in these instructions in deciding your verdict. There are no other laws that apply to this case. Even if you do not like the laws that must be applied, you must use them. For more than 2 centuries, we have lived by the Constitution and the law. No juror has the right to violate the rules we share. You can keep those copies with you. One of them has to be signed and submitted to me, by me to the clerk. I have 3 jurors, so I know that you all have been very dedicated. We can hear you laughing, so I think you all have become close since then. That's a good thing. But there's 3 dedicated jurors that will be leaving us. So you're going to go with Umberto up to my office. We have lunch for you. I'll shake your hand and thank you. It is Grace Rivas, Liseth,
Oh, they muted it. I believe she said yesterday that they were going to work to 5:30. I believe that the prosecution came back with some good arguments, some of the same I raised during his rebuttal, but I still think that his closing was way too slow.
All right, jurors have left. Lawyers, please take a look at the exhibits. If there's a clean laptop, I'd like to send that back to them.
Judge, can I
That's
just
the
point
verdict
to
form.
Bill's quote real quick?
Oh, sure.
I'll clean up my mess.
All right, we can go off record. When Mr. Tomas comes back, we'll just.
These are the poll results. You have them in the same order, DCPA, but 52% believe that the prosecution did a D effort, and 44 said the defense. 31% said C, 27% said C, 15% and 22% said B. I would give the prosecutor a D and defense, I think C, because he put in so many things that was absolutely not relevant to this trial, and didn't really talk about anything that was relevant. But they're gonna go out, they're gonna eat some din, and you're gonna eat some lunch. I have bought a set of Lego I can build, and we're gonna come back for verdict watch in. I need some food, and I'll keep it running in the background. I don't believe anything will happen in the next 45 minutes or something like that. If you are going to get some lunch, which you should do, go. Oh, I can show. I have a picture. I have this set. either a toucan, a clownfish, or a butterfly, I think it is. So we're gonna do the verdict watch as we always do. I'm gonna ruin my day even more than it is, but I need some dinner first. I'm gonna go start the other computer up, and then we can hang out and chit chat, and Brandon can tell us how he and Lefty are gonna do the Eiffel Tower when they go to Paris, and all of that wonderful stuff that we normally do when we're on Verdict Watch. If you're going away, just to make sure you get notifications when we come back, follow on the Twitter thread, follow on the Discord, and a new thing, I put up a Facebook page because people still use Facebook. I don't really, but I thought it could be nice if people don't go on the Twitter thread and don't go on the Discord. There is a not a YouTube page. There is a Facebook page called Broken Baker that you can go follow, and where I'll try and remember to notify when I go live as well. Brandon, I will pay the beers that you will need to do it to my ex-wife. Well, still not as soft as Lefty out of Wisconsin. Just because he's from Wisconsin, he doesn't need to be a cheesehead, but he is. See you later.